What's going on? What's going on, Keith? How are you, my man?
The best day of my life, Dan. How you doing?
It's the best day of my life too. I wanted to make sure not to say "What's up, guys," because apparently we got a comment saying that that's a clear indication that the show is bad. So don't worry, buddy. I didn't say what you said. But let's say hello to everyone in the
Oh
chat. We
man,
got B Woo Memes and Markets for Life. You know what's
let's
up.
go.
We've got who else we got here? We got Johan. Yo, what up? Welcome, welcome. Happy to have you. What's up, boys? We got I don't know how I'm gonna pronounce that. Relev Seth the Kraken.
What
What up? What up?
up?
Hope you're all doing great. Don't be shy. Be loud in the chat. And today, what are we talking about today, Keith?
Today we are talking about this affordability crisis that is happening in the U.S. and honestly, you're seeing it all over. You're seeing it all over the place. I mean, even with
Yes.
Iran and the collapse of their dollar, right? Big, big, big problems happening around the world.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think any country's immune to it. I think is a better way of saying it. Canada is definitely going through the exact same thing, maybe worse. But we'll focus first on the American policy changes that Trump is proposing because he's been doing a lot, and there's some specific reasons as to why he's doing that. Right, in terms of the midterms coming up, and people feeling the crunch, man. Like the main street or the everyday person, we're hurting a lot, and you've got to sort that otherwise you can't expect to win. What up? What up? What up?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, when things get too out of hand regarding affordability, you lose not only the economics of your country starts to get or just get faulty, but even the whole social fabric, right? It starts to cause big issues, and it's something we talk about all the time here, right?
Oh, 110%, because it starts there, and almost all of the problems, and I think the country or the countries of the world are starting to wake up and realize this, that it's almost all tied back to the money, right? Like almost all of these problems are spillovers of that like primary issue, and people stop caring about a lot of the other things once they're comfortable financially. So we'll see what Trump has for us here.
Yeah, so we've had a truth social storm from Trump over the past week of all of these different changes that he wants to see made in America. Some of these things he's going to potentially try to address with executive actions, releasing executive orders. Others, he's saying, Congress, I need you to actually codify this and put this into law, which makes sense. It's not really too much that he can do to try and force a lot of these things that he's saying without Congress on his side. And that also takes us back to that whole midterms thing, right? So right now, I think Trump has somewhat of a consensus around the things that he's trying to do in Congress, and so uh, you know, not only is he trying to maintain that before the midterms at the end of the year, but he also needs to take advantage of whatever he can do with that for now as well. So, anyways, um, a few different things that he's put out into the world, and we'll break some of these down one by one. The first thing, though, is credit card interest rate caps. Okay, he's proposed putting a cap on interest rates of around, what is it, 10% for credit cards, which a lot of clapback on this. A lot of people in the business world saying, "Hey, this isn't actually going to work." But then a lot of people are like, "Finally, this is going to finally open things up for consumers." That's the first thing, and I think we'll dive into that first. But then there's also Trump announced $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities purchases from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We'll dive into that. He's talked about canceling or preventing corporations and large institutions from being able to buy single family homes, okay, because that's pushing up the prices of the housing market in the United States. And then he's also talked about, well, one of the things that's just kind of there that is addressing the affordability crisis is the fact that, um, well, the U.S. is kind of going on a little bit of an expedition, capturing oil interests around the world, including obviously Venezuela with the largest oil reserve in the world, and then there might be some intervention happening over in Iran, which actually happens to have the third largest oil reserves right after Saudi. Um, so yeah, these are the things that we're gonna break down today.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. We'll try to go and provide our commentary. We'll definitely have the chat be very active in this. We'll be looking for you guys to see your opinions on stuff. And so I saw one right here that I wanted to touch before you
Mhm.
start getting really into it. So money is only a status declaration, nothing more. But I would argue that human beings, at least in recorded history, are very much status-seeking creatures. And so, yes, the byproduct might be the status that you're unable to emit when you don't have the money, but I think that's still a very integral thing to the human experience. And so I think that like you could say, oh, whatever, it's just money. It's like, yes, but money in our current system rules so many things. And so, yes, money is fundamentally broken or perfectly designed. And I think crypto and a lot of things that we talk on here are the few tools that we have in our tool belt to hopefully solve some of this stuff. But Trump's definitely doing a lot of things very quickly because he also has to, right? Like there's not much time to change sentiment amongst people before people have to vote. So where do you want to start with
Yeah.
all these changes?
And Johan Benter, that is exactly what our topic is tomorrow, actually. So make sure you come by tomorrow as well. Like you said,
Yes.
we need to take on the Clarity Act. Yep.
Yeah, we'll be talking all about this tomorrow. It's a very big deal. I'm sure you guys have been paying attention to the markets, and it seems like a lot of the positive sentiment around crypto in general is coming from that potentially going well and being signed in. So that's it's a big deal. We're seeing some pretty big jumps in the crypto market. Pretty like Bitcoin, as I'm checking right now, is at 97.5, which is definitely good to see.
Push. It's pushing. So yeah, first things first, Trump talked about capping interest rates. Let's dive into that real quick. I'll show you a quick clip of what he said.
Let's do it.
I want a cap on credit card interest rates because, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And the people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, they're working and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a 1-year cap at 10%. And that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
So what I didn't realize, as I was doing some research on this, he actually said this before he was in office as well.
Mm.
And while working Americans catch up, we're going to put a temporary cap on credit card interest rates. We're going to cap it at around 10%. We can't let them make 25 and 30%.
So it is crazy
how
high it is. It's so predatory, especially when you get to a point now where the affordability is at such a difficult point. What other choices do people have other than to put it on their credit card?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, there's credit cards and then there's payday loans. Right?
Payday loans are crazy. Can you explain what those are? Because I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the concept.
Yeah, I mean, to the best that I can, essentially, there's these companies that set up, by the way, in all of the poorest parts of the United States. They set up on the corners and they tell people, well, we'll give you a loan based upon whatever your wages are, right? And we'll give you an advance on your wages just in case, you need to cover your bills and this and that. And the interest rates on that stuff, I remember I had to go to one of these with one of my boys in college. And I just looked at like the rates on the sign and it was just like hundreds of percent. And I'm like, wait a minute. like, whoa. And it's supposed to be super short-term funding, right? So usually when you have that, you're going to charge a higher rate. That's how you're going to make money. But it's the most predatory form of lending that you'll see. That's official, right? That you can actually go out and legally get funding to do. So, right, when we compare those alternatives, and this is what the whole debate is about, right? So if you put a cap on credit card interest rates, that is the profit of these businesses, of these credit card companies. And when you put a cap on the profit of these credit card companies, they're actually going to probably essentially not be as they're not going to be able to lend as much, right? They're going to have to say, well, this person here, I can't lend to him at 10%, right? Because that's not going to fit my business model. I'm going to be taking on too much risk. And so when you get that, what happens? You actually have less credit availability to the people who might need it the most. And then what do they have to do? Now they got to go to payday loan places.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I could definitely see that happening, but I think maybe it's a two-sided problem where you also need to adjust like legislation in terms of who can get involved in these practices, because I think a lot of it has to do with no true competition, right? Like, yeah, they're saying this because they want to maintain a profit margin, and they want to maintain a profit margin because they have a massive moat around the business, right? So it's like, I think that obviously it's simple to say we'll drop it and then it's just all going to work out. But I do think there needs to be changes across the board. And just because something's been going a certain way for a long period of time does not mean it's not super messed up.
Yeah, totally agreed. And then I saw this one tweet from this lady who said that she had some experience in the industry, and I thought this was really good. So I'll kind of try to break some of this down. She said, your credit card rewards exist because someone else is paying 25% APR. If you cap that at 10%, and then the points on all these credit cards don't survive. She spent years working inside of it, So capping credit card at 10% sounds like an obvious consumer win because cards are charging 20 to 30%. But credit card economics are not just about interest rates. She says there are a cross they are a cross subsidized system where revolvers subsidize transactions, rewards, and rely on behavioral inefficiency and risk-based pricing subsidies access. So basically, what she's saying is that when you remove, right, the ability to actually charge interest on these cards, there's going to be a few things that these companies are going to have to do to try to maintain their profits. One of them is going to be to cut back on either what the rewards, the amount of rewards that they're giving, or essentially the quality of those rewards that they're giving to the users of these credit cards, right? Um, and so this is kind of what this whole thing goes down into. If you wanted to read that further, that's what she's basically saying. And then she kind of, closes off by saying she's not defending the current system,
Mhm.
right? She doesn't
She's
have a
explaining how it
stake in
works.
the outcome. She's just saying this is how it works.
Totally. And that's the thing with a lot of these things is that there are systems that I think a lot more credit is given to people in terms of their malicious design for symptoms when really the answer is ignorance in a lot of cases. Of course, there's a lot of predatory behavior out there, but a lot of the systems that we're operating in are just incredibly outdated, right? And technology and the technology of money has progressed so much in terms of how we all interoperate with especially with the internet too, that a lot of these rules and things need to be modernized in a very major way.
100%, man. And then just a quick couple things on this. I won't play this whole video, but Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, kind of addressed the fact that, well, maybe the president didn't fully think that through when he said that. Um, you know, there is the potential that these credit card companies would just stop lending money to certain people. So he came out and tried to, I guess, address that for the president. And then I also saw this meme about all of this. Okay, so the other side of this is that if this were to work, then the idea would be that, well, if I'm a consumer, then now I can use the heck out of my credit card too, right? Like if I get 1 year where my
Yeah.
10%, I'm about to go ham, right? So, and I think that's part of it too, is, trying to increase spending throughout the economy. So Chase Passive Income, my favorite on here, guys, you'll see him over and over again. He said, just maxed out my credit card. Interest on credit cards is about to become illegal, meaning all my credit card debt will just go away and I owe nothing. I'm playing chess.
That's hilarious. Did I ever tell you
So,
did I ever tell you the story about the guy who worked for my dad who kinda had that same sort of philosophy, but he actually thought it was real?
no, talk to
Okay,
me.
so he was working for my dad. He was a consistent laborer for my dad's pool construction company, and this guy would come back every year. He became like a character in my life. I had never met the guy for a long period of time, but I heard about him every night at dinner. And then he was not the best with money. He had a lot of vices and he spent a lot of money. And so he owed enough on his credit card where he did the math. And if he paid the minimum payment, it would take him something like 80 or 90 years to pay it off in its entirety. And so he comes with this information to my dad and says, I've got him right where I want him. I'll be dead. It's like, you idiot, you're paying so much interest. But that just goes to show you the level of ignorance across the board in terms of how this stuff actually works.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like, you're kind of giving people access to a financial weapon,
Yes.
right? But you're not educating them on how it's used or how
No,
it can be used or what can happen.
and that's so consistent how we can screw our lives financially all across the board, but no one teaches you how to actually use it, right? There's a who had a comment here? Someone was saying how they don't teach you this stuff in school, but they'll give you like every tool to basically to ruin your financial life. Oh, here it is. Here it is. They're both predatory, referring to payday and the credit cards, yet they won't teach you financial literacy in school. Yeah. And when you get flagged on TikTok for trying to teach it.
Man, snap,
Crazy.
dude. And then Carl said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He
Mhm.
who doesn't pays it.
Facts.
And yeah, I think that's a really good one.
This is a really good point too, though, because this is you always got to play devil's advocate. So the modernization of laws regarding money leads to more control and surveillance. It certainly opens the door for it, which ultimately leads to less freedom. What's your take on this? I think that's a very fair take and something that has to be considered. And that's also why education is of the utmost importance for the technology that exists when it comes to privacy tech, blockchain, all these different things that are going to be topics this year. They're really going to decide how we conduct ourselves within an economy over the next like 50 to 100, very likely. And so it's like so incredibly important to understand how this works, at least at like a surface level. And I would say the level of understanding is so low for a lot of the people who are going to vote on these decisions. And it's not their fault. They've got other shit to worry about. I totally get that. But it's really important that people come up to speed at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, right? The thing that scares me the most right now is that we're moving into a world where financial literacy is extremely low. Okay, not
Crazy
even
low.
just in the U.S. It's a problem around the world.
I was thinking about this last night, and I want you to continue this point, but I don't
Hmm.
want to lose this one,
Hmm.
where I was like, the problem, and we're going to touch on this again at the end, but everyone thinks they know a lot because they have access to unlimited information, right? But I would argue that people are actually more ignorant today than in a lot of cases because they consume so much around a few very specific subjects, and they're usually not that helpful in terms of changing their life. Because you can go so deep in something so dumb, like so many
That's so
dumb
true.
things, right? So there's a lot of people out there who they can't fathom that you could change your life with information, and so they don't take advantage of it. But continue with your point.
Yeah, so great point. So I saw some studies some years back from the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and I learned through that financial literacy is a problem around the world. Okay, it's not just in the U.S.,
Totally,
even though I'm
totally.
sure it's really bad in the U.S. Um, but we're also moving into a world where now we have technology also becoming something that's more and more used in our everyday life, and that uh, literacy rates for it are not necessarily where we'd want them to be for the people who have all the money, especially, right?
Mhm.
And then we've got these two worlds completely merging together, and nobody knows that this is happening in the background, right? So not only do we have a financial literacy problem, we have a media literacy and technology literacy problem. And now both of these things are coming together to make it really hard for people who aren't familiar with all of this stuff to actually be able to keep up, or at the worst, you know, just not get completely left out of
Mhm.
a new system that is being built out here. Really, it's kind of how I look at it.
Totally. But there are the tools that people like you can use the tools that are changing everything to learn this stuff far faster too, which I think is very, very important. And also why another thing that I don't think many people have been thinking about for why I'm still so bullish on this upcoming year when it comes to crypto is because like a lot of people think that retail won't come back because they were burned before. But now they actually have the tools to be taught why they were burned before, right? And understand that some people did win. Right? Because back in the day, when you want to learn this stuff, back in the day, I'm saying like even 4 or 5 years ago, like we had to watch YouTube videos and read white papers. The cognitive load discrepancy between then and now is like orders of magnitude apart. Like it is such a lower ask now to become well versed in this stuff because you can literally take the information, put it into your AI tool of choice, and literally ask questions until you understand. Right? Like every person watching this, ever watches this, has someone smarter than me or you in their pocket 24/7.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It also just ends up with like you're saying though, with the information staying super surface level and or even just being like wrong, like a lot of the stuff that people actually look at. But if you really care and you actually want to know this stuff, yeah, you've got access
You
to all
can.
this. You were also saying like on YouTube, they have like a thing where you can ask it questions.
Yes, man. So because obviously YouTube is a massive player, or Google rather, who owns YouTube, is a massive player in the whole AI space. The problem that they have with AI that's going to hold it back from being fully adopted and growing the way that it could is really the UI UX problem. It's the user interface. It has all of these capabilities, but if you can't pull out what you need without a lot of work, it loses its utility pretty dramatically. And so the benefit that platforms that are building AI that they have like live feedback with users is they can test all these things a lot and make better decisions. And so YouTube is attempting to do that right now where I see it on some screens and I don't see it on other. But if you go down to the bottom when you're watching a video, you'll see this little thing that looks like a how do I even describe what it looks like? Let me go see if it's on ours right now. But it's this little button where you can essentially use AI to summarize what's in the video, ask questions about what's in the video, and really use it as like a study guide, right? When watching content, which is a crazy, crazy tool.
Yeah, that's super fantastic to think that in real time you can kind of like ask YouTube as you go. I've definitely seen it as
But
well.
so maybe it's only once it's been fully uploaded. That would make sense because they need the
Yeah,
transcript. So you can't
right.
do it on a live, but when you guys are coming back to watch the replay, look for this little thing. Can you see it on your screen right now, Keith?
I'm not seeing it because I'm on our stream, but let
Got it,
me
got it, got it.
try
I
to.
found it, I found it. Okay, so
Okay.
if you look at my stuff right here, I don't know if you can see anything, but there's like a little like lightning bolt looking thing right there. You see it?
Wait.
Besides
Oh,
save.
okay. Yes, I
So
do. I do.
if you click the lightning bolt thing, that's their Gemini. And with that, you can see, look, I can ask it questions like summarize the video. I can do all sorts of things, right? So now, because I was talking about intelligence with my girlfriend today. I'm like, what do I define someone as intelligent? And for me, what intelligence is that I don't need you to know the thing, but I need you to understand first principles thinking enough to know the question to ask. That's usually my first indication of what intelligence is. And people don't even need that anymore, Keith.
Well, yeah, because
You
it
can
tells
ask
you
what
what
questions to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can yeah, like really, you can say like, oh, I don't know this. Like I'm a total layman. Like how could I explain this? Explain this to me like I'm 7, right? Or what questions should I ask?
Yeah.
Like the burden to learn is just dropping so much by the day.
Such a good point, man. Such a good point. So, with all of that being said, we're looking at the capping of these interest rates on credit cards and how a lot of people don't really know, right, exactly what they're getting into when they're using these credit cards. Um, you get these letters in the mail when you're young, right?
It's so messed up, bro.
It's
They get you right when
crazy.
you're 18, man.
It's crazy.
Someone on here had a good comment. They're like, they chill out at school campuses. And so it's like they'll get you with the student loans that are worth nothing, and then they'll also hit you with this, so they can get you on both ends. It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like that kid did not take a course on that. Like, y'all, the only thing y'all should be doing is actually teaching people about like the bad things that can happen when someone
That's
doesn't know how to use their credit card or
one
whatever.
thing I'm very fortunate with is that like my grandparents grew up and were involved with like around the Great Depression, right? So they were so traumatized by that experience, especially growing up on a farm when they did. Like they they were so obsessed with money. Like when I was like 5 or 6 years old, the youngest you could possibly be, they took me to the bank and I got one of them little books and started learning about money where they would print my transactions all the time. And that was such an advantage that I had in life, right?
Wow.
Where I will say that I don't agree with my family's approach to investing, but I understand where it's came from, especially once I read The Psychology of Money. It all made complete sense to me. But if my family was a little more risk tolerant, they could have a completely different financial situation, but they did what made sense for them. And the fact that I was even thinking about these things at that age gave me such an advantage.
Yeah, man. That's actually such a fun thing to talk about because of the Great Depression, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit later as well. That whole generation, like they saw the stock market slide by what? Like, I don't know, like
Crazy
crazy
amounts.
numbers,
Yeah.
right? And then it never really fully recovered in their lifetime, right? So they're
No.
like, the stock market is a
It's too
scam.
risky. Yes,
like,
yes.
like the same way people look at crypto as a scam, the whole stock market was a scam back then.
Totally.
So it makes sense, right? That like credit and all that used to be dirty words,
Yes.
right? Now we got all these credit influencers. We got these people that are like credit lords on YouTube that are like, this is how you get your credit game up. Da, da, da. Like
It's a risky game because you can play those games when things are going well and going up, but like you just said, that's not always the case.
Yeah, man. So that's the state of that whole thing right here. When we had this announcement from the president of him potentially capping interest rates, you saw bank stocks take a little bit of a hit down 2 to 3% or something like that. Banks are also coming out and saying, hey, like, don't do that. We don't think
Shocker.
that's going to be good for us. Yeah. or what they kept saying is that this won't be good for consumers.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
hilarious.
Of course, you got to go that angle, right?
Okay.
But
yeah.
there's one here. The interest rate is in huge bold print. Fees are in a clear chart. I don't buy that people don't know. Okay. There's a very different thing from saying you know something and understanding what that means. Right?
For
So like
sure.
you can say, I understand the interest rate is 20%. Could you explain to me what that means in practice? I bet the people that could actually explain it with numbers is like 1%, maybe.
We have to recognize that our brains also are not designed or built to be able to understand exponentials. And when
No.
we're talking about rates, right? We're talking about exponentials. So you literally have to actually be like trained on what is compound interest. Like
Yes.
that's not something that your brain just understands.
And obviously, Rooted, you're probably a very smart person who's had access to certain things, but we also really over-index on our experience and we assume it's universal. It's very much not, right? Like a lot of people that I know that struggle with money or finances, it would have been pretty predictable that they would have this outcome when they were young. Like they weren't exposed to the information. And unfortunately, when you build a really bad relationship with learning, a lot of people just turn their brains off once they reach 18.
No doubt about it. And you made a really good point though. It's like, yeah, it's there in bold, but it's like that doesn't mean anything.
They don't know what that means. They have no clue what that means, right? And that's how can you even like fault them for that when they're just trying to survive? I think it is on you though to get educated, and now your excuses are going away by the day. Like you can go in and much like that Rudy just said, like show the picture and say, explain this to what it means. Give me financial like numbers and examples for what this would actually mean, because it's very easy. Another thing that we talked about on our anti gambling app content, where when you don't lose something and there's not much friction to do it, it happens so much more frequently. Like I would love to see the numbers in terms of consumption changes when it's cash versus a card. Because the cash, you have to actually see it leave your hand every time, right? That's
Mhm.
such much more of a painful experience. Whereas when now I just got my phone, I don't even think about it.
100%. 100%. And especially even when you literally know it's not your money. Like,
Yeah, that's true
like come
too.
on.
Yeah, people have just
Like,
adopted the screw it mentality, which is so dangerous.
yeah, yeah. Um, so just to really harp on this, right? Like you got people who don't know how to read. Okay. Like we're
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, it's here in bold. Like the average regular literacy rates in the United States are very low. Like
Mhm.
people read at a fifth grade level. So no, they don't even know what the words mean on the page, leave it alone the numbers. You know what I'm saying? So, but once again, we're not here trying to make excuses for people who make poor decisions, but we are trying to point out the fact that there is a little bit of a predatory nature to how these companies actually continue to profit and benefit from, the low literacy that we have in the United States and around the world. You see it.
And whenever you know something, it's almost impossible to conceive that everyone doesn't know that thing, right? And most
True.
people don't veer too far outside of their circle, right? So like that person, I guarantee you that person, everyone around them is probably fairly financially comfortable, relatively speaking,
Mhm,
and probably pretty well educated. So it's
mhm.
like you don't understand the luxury that is or how rare that can actually be. And most people, they're not out there talking with like thousands of people every single day, right? Their census is the 20 people they see week to week. Right? And that's the problem with like almost all of these debates is that everyone is coming with that level of ignorance in different places and screaming at you saying your experience is wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. We're in an interesting place with that where we're we're not talking to people in the real world either, right? Like everything's on our phones and this and that. And so if you're not if you're not raised in an environment where it's like go talk to everyone, like go mix with the people and like, then you never will really understand what people are going through or how they may look through life. So anyways,
With the credit card stuff, do you think that it actually comes to fruition?
no.
Do you think this is just sheerly optics?
Yeah, I think there's no chance. I mean, I guess I just think it would be really bad if it does.
And why would it be bad? Explain to me the scenario.
Yeah, like I genuinely think if you try to cap JP Morgan and their interest rates, they're gonna come down hard. People are gonna have their stuff removed. The actual fees that people are paying yearly on the cards is gonna go up immediately.
They have a lot of tools,
Yeah, like they've got some levers to pull,
big
right?
time.
The amount of interest you earn on your deposits could just go down. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Totally.
lot of things that can happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. I typically would lean to your view of it too. I don't think that that'll come to fruition, but I think it sounds good. And I think that when people are looking at their monthly credit card bill every day and like wondering like how am I ever going to get out of this? If there's even the chance of that escape route that people would see this as, I think that's great for optics.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, because that's the big thing, right? So, if this were to happen and if it were to work, this could lead to more spending in the economy, right? So, just thinking about that. So, the next couple of things that we'll move on to now, um, I'll kind of go into the mortgage-backed securities thing.
Go for it.
So Trump said that they're going to get Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac to go out and buy $200 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities from the market in an attempt to get mortgage rates down. So very quickly, the way that these mortgage-backed securities essentially work, let me actually fully break this down. So in the 1930s or before the 1930s, um, when people went out to get a loan to buy a home, the average duration of the loans of the mortgages was way shorter. It'd be like a
Hmm.
5-year loan. And so you'd get a 5-year loan, and most of them were balloon loans. So you wouldn't pay them uh you would pay interest only, right, for those 5 years, and then at the end of the 5 years you'd make a larger payment on the initial principal amount. And so with that, what people would really do is after the 5 years, they would just refinance the loan.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm not gonna pay down 15 grand at one time because, by the way, that's how much houses cost, right? Crazy. But instead, I'm gonna get out another loan and then pay interest only on that loan, and then once it comes back down again, just keep refinancing. But the problem was in the 30s, you had the Great Depression, okay? And this refinancing really only works well when the housing prices are going up because now you're when you're making payments, you should be getting some equity right in the home. And so if the price of the home goes up, you can refinance. And now you're just going to end up paying less and less because you got equity in the home, whatever. But that's not what happened in the 30s. You had a Great Depression, home prices fell, and banks didn't want to lend to people to go and buy homes. So if you can't refinance your loan, then the whole market will just collapse essentially,
Hmm.
right? Like there's no more buying homes on credit. And so
And
what
that,
I, Mhm.
sorry, that impacts the whole economy so hard
Oh yeah.
because there's so many things that are around the people moving of their homes. Like so many businesses operate from that thing taking place fairly consistently. Go ahead.
100%. Yeah, we kind of skipped over some of that, but like the housing market becomes really essential to everything in society, right? If people can't buy a home, then they essentially stop also like living life as a human,
Hmm.
right? Like they don't, for instance, young people right now, right, who can't go out and buy a home, they're not going on dates, they're not like meeting their partners, they're not having children, and that creates a demographic problem for the entire country, for the entire economy, right? When people aren't having kids, and this is happening all over the world. Okay, people are not having kids. The only place that I think is still having a population growth is like proper population growth is in like Africa and like India,
Hmm.
something like that.
Soon to be
Um,
Canada.
if word.
Eventually, man. They brought in a ton of people from India. They'll have a lot of kids. I still would assume.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a few days ago or a few times ago, where it's like people who will have kids no matter what's kind of happening
Yes.
in the economy and stuff like
'Cause
that.
they also have the advantage that, like, they'll live with 12 people in a home, and that's normal, right? Whereas here with the whole American dream, it is all about, "Can I get my own place?" Right?
Mhm,
They
mhm.
don't really even have a desire for that, right? So there's a city in Canada called Brampton, where that's really where a lot of people, I believe it's Indians, where a lot of them started going there, and then what they would do is they'd live in a home with a bunch of other people, typically from one family or a few families, and then they would slowly work together to buy more and more homes around them. And so now, like, the whole city of Brampton is like immigrants.
Fascinating concept. I was actually talking to someone because it's like the H-1B visa thing was coming up, and I was
Mhm,
talking to him a few months ago. He was like, I worked with these guys who they all stayed in the same house and they didn't necessarily buy property here because that was harder, but they would stay and live together in the US, but then buy property back in India,
mm,
right? And so either way, the mindset around like instead of using money also to consume a home, right? Because that's what the American dream is all about, to consume a
yes.
home, to buy a home and sit in it, right? They're like, well, we would like to buy a home and rent that out and like build
They're making
wealth
money from it.
and like
Yeah,
actually,
and that was the
do it
big thing
that
that
way.
screwed the Canadian economy. Sorry to cut you off there, buddy. Was that we had this foreign workers program where they could pay foreign workers way less money if they could deem that it was a job that a Canadian wouldn't do. And so then now like immigrants have like taken a lot of the entry level jobs that they don't really, and I'm not saying that Canadians would have done it. Like I don't know the numbers on that, but it definitely was a big issue. And I saw this way before all the shit hit the fan because I was working at this hummus company here in Canada. And I went into the factory as they're walking us around and no one spoke English, dude. And I'm like, how is this possible? Whatever. And then they explained that they had this foreign worker programs where they only had to pay them like a fraction of what they would pay a normal worker in Canada. And so then that just became a shit show because I'm sure the buying power of these dollars, even if let's say it's like half of what the minimum wage was, I'm sure converted back to their buying power in their home currency, it's still a lot of money for them, right? But it started this cascading effect of a very bad situation. And the housing market is getting worse in Canada. And then the employment market, I think, is my scarier thing here.
Heard. And so we're harping on that because Great Depression happens, housing market collapses.
Yeah.
Okay. Big problem. And so in 1938, I think is when it was, FDR introduced this new program where essentially what he created an entity, this government sponsored entity called Fannie Mae. And what Fannie Mae does is it's going to go out and it's going to buy mortgages, the older mortgages from these banks, so that these banks then have cash. And so they can continue to make loans to people who need to go out and buy a house or whatever they need to do. That's generally kind of what happened there. And so fast forward, it continued to kind of be a thing. But then eventually they said, okay, instead of us just buying these mortgages from banks and then holding them until maturity, right? Then what would happen is they would package all of these mortgages that they were buying from banks up and then sell them as what are called mortgage-backed securities. So you have this pool of loans that the Fannie Mae's and Freddie Mac's essentially would be putting together when they bought the mortgages from the banks, and then they sell them on the secondary markets, right? And this is how you have this mortgage-backed securities market, where you see mortgage rates are essentially moving up and down in the open markets based upon these mortgage-backed securities that are selling. So, anyways, so now the President Trump is apparently, I guess he's able to direct these Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to go out and buy mortgage-backed securities at the tune of $200 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities, which isn't like some crazy amount of money, but at the same time, it's pretty much all of the money that these two organizations have and that they've built up over years and years and years of building up, like not all the time that they've been around, but like 8 years or something like that. So this is supposed to, obviously inject money into the housing market to bring interest rates down, mortgage rates down. And I'll actually pull up a chart of what this is looking like at the moment. And the thing about this that's actually kind of potentially genius around this is that, okay, so this is mortgage rates over the past few years, right? So we saw, first off, they went down to as low as 3% back in 2020, super low mortgage rates. Okay, people who locked in interest rates down here, right? They don't want to sell. Okay, they don't want to sell because they know that if they want to go out and buy another home, they're gonna have to refinance. They're gonna have to buy, or excuse me, get loans at these high 7% rates that we saw in 2023. Now it's come down a little bit and it's coming down right now. Okay. But point being, the thing that could be genius about what Trump is trying to do here is that first off, it's only a one-time price shock, right? If you just buy $200 billion at one time, that's probably not the best thing. But what he's preventing is the Federal Reserve, right, going out and printing new money to go out and buy these mortgage-backed securities because these organizations apparently have this money in cash on hand already. So usually when you've got a big problem like this in the mortgage markets or just in the economy in general, the Federal Reserve will actually go out and buy mortgage-backed securities. But when they're buying these mortgage-backed securities, their balance sheet is going up and therefore more money is coming into circulation. Right. So from what I understand, this would not lead to printing more money, but it's also not as much money. It's only $200 billion at one time, which could cause a huge spike down and then potentially a reversal of that. But at least the market should not expect higher inflation expectations because of this move, right? Because And the reason that matters is because higher inflation expectations would actually end up leading to even higher, potentially higher long-term interest rates on mortgages. So, anyways, just wanted to kind of point that concept out. And that could actually be not fully the right way to look at it, but that's what I've understood from the research that I've done.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, no, there's so many things that connect to changes in these things that impact behavior down the line. So you have to consider all these things. It's like economics has become incredibly complicated because everything's so connected. Caroline said, "U.S. and Canada is made up of immigrants. These are just the newer ones, 100%." And
Mhm.
I'm pro immigration when it's handled well. I just don't think that at least Canada. I can only speak to that. I don't think Canada handled it all that well, and I don't think it benefited most people involved. Is all I was saying.
Totally understood. Totally. Um, so this guy Parker Ross, he came out and said secondary mortgage spreads are down a massive 20 basis points on the week, with most of that move happening in the morning on January 9th, which was around when the announcement was made. And so he goes in about this, and I just wanted to use this as a moment to break down like what are mortgage spreads. So basically, credit spreads are essentially when you're looking at the difference between one interest rate and another interest rate. And usually, when you hear credit spreads, it can kind of mean different things, but a lot of the times, what you're taking is you're taking some asset, some sort of a bond market of some sort, and you're comparing that to US Treasuries. Now, when it comes to mortgages, what I understand is that you're going to compare mortgage rates. Okay, the rate on a 10-year mortgage, for instance, and you're going to compare that to a 10-year treasury. Okay, and the spread between the difference between how much am I paying for a mortgage versus a treasury is the spread. And this can give you an idea of how risky the market assumes that mortgages are relative to treasuries. Okay. You also see this in the corporate bond market. So, how much are corporate bonds paying versus how much are government bonds paying of the same maturity length? And once again, if you see a huge spread, right, between corporate bonds and treasuries, then that means that essentially the market is pricing in the idea that there's a higher default risk for the corporate bonds. There's a higher chance that these corporations are not going to be able to pay you back. And so obviously the US Treasury is always going to pay you back, right? Bar some crazy incident. And so the spread is something that you can use to help gauge what level of risk, right, investors are seeing for investing in this asset class versus US Treasury. So, all that said, secondary mortgage spreads are down 20 basis points or 20.01%, so 0.2%. Okay. So, yeah, just wanted to point that out and look at this. So, even just the announcement of this idea has led to uh, mortgage mortgage spreads coming down.
Does that concern you?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It means that people are saying that there's less risk in the mortgage rates in the mortgage markets. And it just points to the fact that when you go out and you buy mortgage-backed securities, the yield on them is going down. So it just naturally is getting closer to the actual US Treasury rate.
Mhm.
Right. Cool,
Yes.
cool, cool, cool.
What do you have
So,
next?
yeah, next thing is Trump trying to ban the purchase of single family homes from large investors. So, January 7th, 2026, Trump announced a ban on large investors from buying single family homes. I don't think that this is official, right? He's just trying to make it happen. And the idea here is that institutions, I saw a study from the St. Louis Fed that said investors are responsible for 30% of home purchases. Right. So if investors are the ones in the US, obviously,
So, what's the definition of an investor? Someone that this isn't their primary residence?
that's the part that I'd have to dig a lot deeper into to be able to tell you right now. But that was the general thing that they said in the study. Um, and that also comes down to too, when Trump is saying he's going to ban investor or corporations or whatever, who's actually being banned from buying these houses as well? Because that's a good question, Ben. Um, but let's assume, yeah, like it means that they're not living in the home. Um, so that's 30%. That was in the first half of 2025. And then I'm seeing some studies saying that institutions own, in general, 20% of rentals in certain markets, which is supposedly driving prices up anywhere from 10 to 15%. And this ban that he's trying to implement could free up 500,000 plus homes, dropping the median house prices by 5 to 10% in very hot areas. Now, another thing that I saw some people pointing out about this is that, well, banning them from buying houses now isn't going to fix anything, right? Like they already own, let's imagine, 20% of single family homes in certain areas. Like, what is that going to do? You would have to have something that would actually get them to divest from their holdings in order for this to actually have any sort of a real impact. So that's something that's going on. Um, so anyway, some people are saying, "Oh, this is great. This is gonna be good. We need them out of our communities." And like, because the thing is they'll go in and they'll buy a whole block up, right?
Mhm.
And once they just go in and buy a whole block, well, now they have complete control over the pricing on that block. And so it gets really hard to prevent that. And also, they're willing to pay, right, more than anyone else can because they're a large
They
financial
can.
institution. It's their whole business, right? Is
Mhm.
long-term capital allocation. So they've got a longer time horizon than anyone else as well.
Yes, they're playing a different game.
And I guess another thing about this is if you keep lowering interest rates, just thinking about this out loud, well, it might be necessary to do something like this because otherwise it gets even easier, right, for them to pay a higher price because they can get money for the cheap, right? And if large corporations can get cheap money, then yeah, they'll buy up all the houses.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. Did you see that? We talked about this clip last time when we had Zach on, where Trump was talking about the problem that he has when it comes to the housing value, right? Because obviously the people who own homes, so much of their net worth and their wealth is tied up into the value of that house. And so maintaining that while also making it approachable for first-time home buyers is a complex problem because you're involving people's livelihoods in it.
Totally, man. Um,
It's a massive issue here in Canada because the world's been split into two. Like either you own a home or you don't. And ours was also propped up even further by a lot of foreign investment. And now it's apparently a lot of the foreign investors are like the game is changing quite a bit, and the market is not seen as stable as a lot of people thought that it was. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this impacts all these things. How do you see if they're able to successfully achieve removing large investors from buying single family homes? Do you view that as positive or negative?
I mean, the problem is this, and this is what Trump has said out loud. Yeah, we played a clip with Zach. Um, let's say you remove a buyer of 30% of single family homes. Um, that should be good for affordability, but that could be devastating
For the value?
for the value of the homes,
Yeah.
right? For the people that own these homes.
If you just look at real buying power of wages relative to what houses were even like 20 or 30 years ago, it's so out of whack.
Yeah.
Like, I look at what my parents bought their first place for and then also what they were making at the time. That world is so far from existence. I think my parents bought their first place for like 150K, and that same house now would be worth probably $1 million plus. And that was when I was they bought that around 98, I want to say. 99, maybe 2000. So it's a near 10x increase in 26 years. Like that's crazy. Your wages have not gone up like that.
Exactly. So yeah, I saw some data that said in 2024, the national median in America, the national median single family home price was about 5 times the median household income,
Wow.
which in 2019 even it was 4.1, and then in the 90s it was 3.2. So
It's gotten crazy.
you're getting close to where every 15, 20 years you're going to have a doubling of
Yeah.
how many years you need to work
It doesn't make sense.
to be able to buy a home.
Yeah, that's really the numbers that I was running when I worked in real estate at my second ever internship, and I just could see clearly. Like, sure, I was around the propaganda of realtors that say it's always going up, but I was
Yeah.
like, this shit is broken. Like, there's no world where this continues, and there's not some sort of massive crash. Because we also don't have the same sort of effectiveness with our money printer, and we don't have the same extensive suite of economic tools that you guys have and military tools, right? Like you guys have so many more resources like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. But C. DeVaris here says in Manitoba, which is a province within Canada, I believe it's a province, right? We've been seeing a ton of people flowing out of BC, British Columbia, and Ontario, both other provinces, just to buy houses and get started. Yeah, it's becoming a very common thing. I actually have a buddy who listens to the show named Austin, and he did the exact same thing. He bought a few houses super far away. No one really lives there because it was the only real thing that he could buy. And so now he's living there, making them awesome. He's doing a lot of great work there. But yeah, it's forced people to move from where they grew up for sure. We've been priced out.
I just noticed we got Sold by Miggy kind of helping to give us some data on how mortgage rates work.
Is that in the chat?
Yes. It looks like he's a realtor. Sold by Miggy. Could be worth
popping it up,
doing some call-ins about stuff like that too.
Yeah, we totally should. Low enough to bring a seller with 3% mortgages on the side. The lines first time home buyers today are not comfortable with. Interesting. Yeah, we should definitely do some call-ins and stuff when we get the tech all sorted. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you guys want to do call-ins, reach out to us on Instagram or Twitter, and then we'll figure out how to actually bring you guys on live, and then we'll have some conversations about stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun for sure. Do you have anything else with the mortgage rates and everything like that?
No, there's just a couple other quick things that had been brought up. Just, he's been saying a lot of stuff over the past couple days.
Yeah,
so
he's been going ham.
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks.
I'm not sure what that had to do with the rest of what this tweet was, but the idea was that he's been talking about completely removing capital gains tax on the sale of homes. So I don't know what that clip was, so I apologize for that. But
You're good. This is a point that I was going to bring up later, but it's brought up here, so I figure I might as well touch it. Where Debt Regret said, I'm not sure I want a home now. Definitely have enough thanks to silver, but renting a cheap room without taxes, HOA fees, etc., maybe a sailboat and retire. I do think the whole logic of the American dream has changed a lot in our generations because we've had to, right? Out of necessity, I think people have kind of gotten okay with, I'm not going to have a home. And that's also why I'm very bullish on crypto too. In my opinion, I think the American dream is going to become owning one BTC. That's what I think will replace I think the more and more people wake up to the options that are out there, how broken things are, I think that'll become more and more of a thing. And I think that will become a goal for a lot of people.
Super fair. And yeah, I don't know if you guys, I know people are very polarized about Grant Cardone. This is actually kind of interesting too, because this actually all ties in. So Grant Cardone, big real estate guy, he really was a sales guy, sold a lot of sales training, and then started
10X.
raising money for real estate deals.
Yeah.
And so he was always like, well, where did this whole American dream to buy a home really come from? And when you really think about it, who wins from this idea of take out a 30-year mortgage to buy a home? And it's the banks, right, have a great business model built around this idea that I need to own a home.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. That being in the fabric of society gives so many people so much power, or not that many people so much power, I guess is a better way of saying it.
Right. And so, and the reason I say that all loops back in too is that now, what is Grant Cardone doing? He's trying to pull a Michael Saylor, but for housing, where they essentially raise money to buy Bitcoin, and somehow that has something to do with what he's doing with his real estate thing is very interesting. I didn't actually dig into it.
Wow.
But basically he's pulling a little bit of a Michael Saylor, where they're using some of the money that they're raising to go out and buy Bitcoin as well.
Interesting. We should show Saylor freaking out on that guy. I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah, I'll show that real quick. So this guy, Danny Knowles, he's an interviewer, podcaster, from what I understand, and he had Michael Saylor on the other day, and he asked Michael Saylor a question about basically companies. Oh, my Twitter doesn't want to work right now.
No.
Um,
Do
about
you want me to send you the link somewhere else?
I mean, if you can send it to me somewhere else, how would that? Because it's just like what Twitter will do. Sometimes it'll just like black out the screen. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, or it'll just glitch out.
Yeah, it just like doesn't. Even if I open a new tab, it just completely doesn't load anything on Twitter.
Got it. Whenever I try to share stuff, it always goes horribly wrong, but I can try to share. Let's see. I also don't know if you guys will be able to hear it. That's the problem. I don't want to like
Completely doesn't load anything on Twitter.
see. I'm got too many things cooking here. Let's see here. I'll try to pull it up and then I'll see if people can see/hear. So I'll go share. Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear this.
200.
No. The question I'm trying to get to though is like with in 25, like you launching the preferreds, which I think are a really interesting product. Does that change the playbook for all these other companies, and how do they now compete against you? Now you have the preferreds as well.
I take issue with your question. It's an ignorant, insulting, myopic question. Why do you frame things that way? We're not competing with each other. That's like saying, well, like I heard my neighbor bought Bitcoin and I bought Bitcoin. There's not enough room for both of us to buy Bitcoin. We're competing with each other. Now, my neighbor's got to buy another crypto asset? Like, we're not competing with each other, Danny. Like that's the ignorant part of the question, right? That's what I take issue with. What you have, if you're a hotel company in Japan, you're competing with other hotel companies in Japan. And the decision to buy Bitcoin is just a decision to improve the quality of your company. It's like saying how many companies can have electricity. I heard 200 companies have electricity, but there's one company that uses a lot of it. So do the other companies have to change their strategy? Dude, like, you think they had the same strategy?
That continues for 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's wild. He ripped into him. There was a lot of clapback on Michael Saylor for the approach that he took to that, saying that he was being defensive, which, like, I really understand the point that he was making. It might not have been an appropriate response to the question.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly, Keith. Like, my response back when you sent that was, I see where he's coming from, but damn, was my exact response. And because you also, like, I get why he's frustrated by that, because he has to answer the same questions over and over and over again. But he also has to ask that because he understands what gets views for his publication, right? And so if Saylor got to have the conversations that he gets to have with people who also understand, very few people would watch. Right? Because it's so far removed from people's understanding. They'd be like, shut up, you freak.
Very true. Very true.
So like, I get why the guy asked the question. I don't think it deserved a 7-minute lecture off of it, but I see why Saylor was pissed. I get why the guy asked the question. It's basically the point that I was trying to make.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really important thing for you guys to understand. And also, we have some exciting ass news. We'll tease it now. We have a guest coming on in a few months that we locked up literally today. We locked it up. So the person who talks about this stuff all the time is Jeff Booth. And this is a book, The Price of Tomorrow. And a lot of people who don't like Jeff Booth, it's kind of the same reasons why people wouldn't like Saylor as well, in terms of how they see and talk about Bitcoin. And it is like a mental block where a lot of money and time and effort has been spent to make you think a certain way, where this shatters a lot of paradigms that most people have felt pretty secure in, or consistently insecure, which makes them feel secure.
100%. 100%. So yeah, Michael Saylor, right? There's like all these clips of him like doing like a sigh when he's like on the news before he has to explain something. Yeah.
But I'm sure you've been there, man. Keith, there's a lot of stuff that you know that is so obvious, and you understand how important it is to know. And the people who, when you talk to them, they ask, but they don't actually care.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can tell that because I get where he's coming from, because the question that comes out of your mouth tells me you don't actually care. Because if you
Mhm.
actually cared, you would have done the surrounding work to understand that's a stupid question,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So like, I think a little more empathy was needed on both sides, but I get why Sailor is pissed. He's like every time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and it's like, as someone who's doing content and media, right? Like you said, like his job is to try to ask the questions that people want to hear the answers to. And like there's a line, right, that Michael Saylor was just, I guess he was done. He was
Yeah,
done.
that was it.
Yeah.
Because he gets that
So
on every publication. We talked about this last time, where a lot of people don't watch crypto content because it's made for crypto people purely, and they just chase price targets. So every video that you see is 10x this, $10 that, $1 this, right? And so if you're people in here trying to build things that is hopefully shifting a lot of the problems that we see around us, and all you care about is the dollar value of your asset in fiat currency, you're missing the point.
mhm,
Right. And so
mhm.
I understand why crypto builders do get pissed. But also, if you want that to change, you got to come up with a better story.
That's it, man. So the other thing that I was going to talk about regarding the affordability crisis is just all of the recent events that have happened on a geopolitical scale, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, we had the US capture Nicolas Maduro on the third day of the year. And basically, Trump coming out and saying we're going to run Venezuela temporarily and also get US companies to come in and invest in, right, the region, to take advantage of all of the oil and energy that's there. So the two things that are important about all of that, I think, were just worth noting here, is that the type of oil that is in Venezuela is this heavy crude oil. And then you have in the United States, along the southern border, we have even across the entire United States, a lot of underutilized crude oil refineries for this heavy crude oil. And so there is actually like a real benefit to having more of that heavy crude oil that we're actually refining inside the United States. And so taking over Venezuela and tapping all of the oil resources there is actually something that could be a very smooth economic move for the US to be able to lower prices in the overall general economy.
Mm.
So I put out a video, I guess it was yesterday, about how I think that some of this stuff plays into the real reason why Trump wants lower interest rates now. And it's because if we pump all of this oil onto global markets, which is his goal, right, to keep prices low, then at some point, the impact of that is not going to only be not inflation, but it will be deflation, right? If you take the most important economic input, which is oil, and you reduce the price by half or something crazy like that, then like prices of things will start to come down. And that can lead to a really bad spiral. You have a deflationary spiral where if I know that the price of goods and services is going to be lower tomorrow, then I'm not going to buy today. I'm going to wait. And then consumption pulls back, and then everything spirals out of control where prices then go down even further, because what does the shopkeeper do to get people to buy? They lower the price. And so what I think Trump is trying to prevent is he wants to keep inflation in check while also still spurring investment in the economy, right? So you've got these expeditions being done, potentially also interfering in Iran. We don't know how that's going to play out just yet. But if he's able to get the first and third largest oil reserves under his command, then he'll have complete control over the oil market with just Saudi in between. And at that point, they won't be as relevant.
And
And go ahead.
no, you're good. Keep going.
And so this was a China connection. Oh yeah, I talked about that much earlier on, but I'll come back to that in a second. So anyways, yeah. So lower interest rates right now, Jerome Powell, because otherwise we're going to have this deflationary spiral taking place. And what I need is actually more investment in the economy to make sure that we can grow their GDP while also keeping inflation and prices in check, while I go out here and go conquer all these countries and take all their oil. Sorry to say it so crude, but like that's kind of what we're going on right now. So anyway, so that's kind of how I was looking at that. But to come back to your comment there about the China Venezuela thing, yeah, 100%. China has been investing not only in Venezuela but in other parts of South America as well as Africa, right? Very much so. And the big thing that I was trying to say in one of my videos was like, well, this was more about influencer. Yeah. I mean, literally,
Thanks.
like the day that they went in, China's representatives had landed in Venezuela the night before, right? So, uh, yeah. So whatever. We don't have to speculate that that's exactly why, but Venezuela has been a big part of like this whole BRICS rollout as well, and countries basically being able to get around U.S. sanctions. Venezuela being one of the big countries that I think is having to deal with U.S. sanctions, and so Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa loop in a country like Venezuela who has this large deposit of oil reserves, right? Large oil reserves, and silver and other materials, right? So, when you've got China coming in and investing in the region, trying to get control over some of those materials and minerals, um, yeah, the US needed to think about how could they prevent China from having so much influence on this side of the world. There was this graphic that came out a while back that I don't think I actually got to pull up on the channel just yet. But
Also, guys, we're sitting at 64 likes in the stream. What's going on? We got 154 people here live and 64 likes. That math ain't mathing. We gotta remedy that.
absolutely unacceptable. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. And if you haven't already, somehow subscribe.
Notifications on.
Notifications on, because we only post live streams over here. So I'm failing to find that graphic at this exact moment in time. But anyways, concept is we're seeing an expansion of power from Russia trying to increase its leverage over the global system. Probably not too much that it really has. It's got all of its resources tied up in Ukraine. And then you've got China trying to increase its influence, talking about taking up Taiwan, right? And obviously all of the investment that's been done for decades all over Africa and decades all over South America as well. We also have forgotten about the Panama Canal situation, right? Like President Trump was going crazy about that at the very beginning of his term here, saying that that's ours. We need to get China out of there. And, China can't have control of that, because if China has control over the Panama Canal, then they basically have control over trade routes on this side of the world. And that's not something that Trump is too cool about happening. So anyways, yeah, no, that's definitely a big part of this. BRICS nations trying to get around U.S. currency use is something that is important. This is the graphic I was trying to show. Can you
Cool.
see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, idea here being Trump wants, right, all of that, North and South America, Putin taking over North Africa, West Europe, right, and China taking East Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as all of Southeast Asia. So you've seen a lot of different graphics like this popping up, thinking about like what exactly is going on right now with all these increased geopolitical tensions. So definitely something to keep an eye on there as well.
Yeah, it does seem like we're switching into like a multipolar world.
And Lucas Hawkins, I'm sorry, I did see your comments earlier. Abs has not confirmed just yet, but it should be in February. We're going to have Abs from Good Evening Crypto on, and I'm going to be on his show next week as well.
Sweet. Yeah, a bunch of y'all did follow through and like the stream, so we're up to some decent numbers. There's still way more. We should still have way more, but we appreciate all of y'all that came in and, as someone said, paid the toll, as Tone World said. That's so awesome. Yeah, the like toll is awesome. But there was did you have anything else that you wanted to go over before we go into something a little more conspiratorial?
More conspiratorial than that. No, I think that's about it for me, man.
So someone said about how this takeover of Venezuela was done with like 20 people. You found that tweet thread, right, too?
Yeah.
Do you want to throw that up?
Oh, yeah. So my Twitter's still acting annoying, but so basically there was this really interesting story that was coming out around, and I'll pull it up, around how there was where did I send that to you, Ben?
Twitter.
Okay.
So I believe it was from the Levitt lady.
Yeah. So Caroline Levitt actually reposted this. So I had already seen the story circulating. It was like on TikTok or something, where this guy was talking about how when the US went in to Venezuela, there was like these crazy weapons being used or something like that. And this guy was like recounting the whole thing. I should find that video more than anything. But so that ended up getting tweeted out. And when it was tweeted out, Caroline Levitt actually went ahead and double tapped on this or retweeted it essentially, right?
Can you find it?
Was finding this, yeah.
I'll try to find it. But yeah, it's and I will say, as someone who's studied a lot of like advanced technology conspiracies and whatnot, I'm very confident that there's technology that exists that would shock us in terms of like even weapons that can pull things off invisible to the eye, but can operate on like a radio or a frequency based level to get the desired outcome. And there's some sounds, or it sounds like there was a degree of that with these. I'm trying to find it for you too. I don't think it was text, was it?
So Caroline, now I had already seen all this stuff, but she retweeted this and I was like, no way she just did that. So stop what you're doing and read this. So Mike Netter, there's a whole video of this guy talking about it, but this is an account from a Venezuelan security guard loyal to Nicolas Maduro, and it's absolutely chilling, and it explains a lot of why the tone across Latin America suddenly changed, which I immediately, when I saw that, I was like, who said that the tone across Latin America changed? Like, I didn't say that. I didn't hear that, right? That's just you saying that. So let's keep going though. Security guard. On the day of operation, we didn't hear anything coming. We were on guard, but suddenly all our radar systems shut down without any explanation. The next thing we saw were drones, a lot of drones flying over our positions. We didn't know how to react. The interviewer asked, so what happened next? How was the main attack? The security guard says, after those drones appeared, some helicopters arrived, but they were very few. I think barely 8 helicopters. From those helicopters, soldiers came down, but a very small number, maybe 20 men. But those men were technologically very advanced. They didn't look like anything we fought against before. Interviewer asked, and then the battle began? Security guard, yes, but it was a massacre. We were hundreds, but we had no chance. They were shooting with such precision and speed.
This sounds like Trump wrote this, bro.
It seemed like each soldier was firing 300 rounds per minute. We couldn't do anything. The interviewer said, and your own weapons, didn't they help? Like, come on, bro. Like,
who talks like this?
Exactly. Security guard says, no help at all, because it wasn't just the weapons. At one point, they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move.
It's 11 from Stranger Things.
Exactly. Interviewer said, and your comrades, did they manage to resist?
Comrades? Who talks like that, bro? That's like when North Korea took that guy named Otto whatever, and they said that he was reading out his own admission script or whatever, and it was so clearly not written by a native English speaker. It's like, we know you wrote this, you idiots. Like, how did you, like, come on.
And then so interviewer said, so you think the rest, okay, hold on. Security guard, no, not at all. Those 20 men without a single casualty killed hundreds of us. We had no way to compete with their technology, with their weapons. I swear, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't even stand up after that sonic weapon or whatever it was. Interviewer says, so do you think the rest of the region should think twice before confronting the Americans? I'm like, bro, when I saw that shit, I was like, come on, bro. And then security guard, without a doubt, I'm sending a warning to anyone who thinks they can fight the United States. They have no idea what they're capable of. After what I saw, I want to be on the other side. I don't want to be on the other side of that again. They're not to be messed with. Interviewer said, okay, and now that Trump has said Mexico's on the list, do you think the situation will change in Latin America? Security guard, definitely. Everyone's already talking about this. No one wants to go through what we went through. Not everyone thinks twice. What happened here is going to change a lot of things, not just in Venezuela, but around the region. Okay, so.
They definitely do have some crazy tech. I have no doubt about that with all of these black budget things. And also there's so many consistencies from stories over decades of time and people that don't know each other, where I do think that there's some crazy levels of tech. And a lot of people believe that they use this tech to basically continue to fund a lot of the black budget stuff, because they can go in and basically use this technology for, like, take your pick, narcotics, warfare, whatever you want, right? And then no one's gonna believe you that it happened.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Dang, what was I gonna think about that? Anyway, so I saw this dude respond. I'll come back to that. This dude responded under here, and I immediately liked this tweet because I was like,
Yeah.
bruh, like this absolutely reeks of government propaganda 100%. But who talks like this? Exactly, bro. So, but so, and then she retweeted this, and I'm like, oh, well, then it is literally government propaganda.
Yeah.
Because why would she acknowledge that stuff, bro? Like, come on, dude. Like, it's not that important. You know what I mean? Like, that's just some random story on the internet. But then Caroline Levitt actually retweets it. Like, come on now. But to the point, like, I mean, that's not even the crazy stuff. Like, we've heard about sonic weapons for all this time. We've known about that. So, you know, there's definitely much more advanced stuff that they got going on than some sonic weapons, bro. We've known about
For
that.
sure. And if you go back to the Bob Lazar case, like a lot of the stuff that he said for a very long period of time has proven to be true. But even with all of these disinformation campaigns, what they'll do is they'll purposely throw in bullshit amongst truth, and they'll give people within programs specific bullshit so that they know who was talking. Right? So like they'll include a lie very specific, and only a certain amount of people saw that very specific lie. So if it comes out, they know the originating source, even if the current person isn't saying it, because the only way they could have known that is if it came from this person. That's like a common PSYOP practice 101.
Very interesting. It kind of reminds me of that time, what was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, where there was like drones around
Is that even that?
DC?
There was a shitload. Wasn't New York too? Wasn't there a ton of drones? I was like, so recently we all just forget about that.
Yeah, dude. Facts. And they like wouldn't tell us what was going on.
That shit was some crazy gaslighting, regardless of what the truth was. They were literally almost, and they do this all the time. They're like, "What do you mean? What are you looking at? You're talking about drones?" It's like, brother, there's like a drone the size of a Jeep over my house. Yes.
Yeah, that was wild. Because I'm like, why would they do that? But I mean, my thing that I ended up taking away from it was like, I think they were trying to see how people would respond.
React.
Yeah, like what would happen if that
Do you think
happened?
it was China, or do you think it was their stuff?
No, I think it was the US. Because otherwise, why would they just like be cool with it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but other people who have been like that are very, very pro-China were basically like, oh, it was a flex of their muscles that you can't do anything about this. We have technology you couldn't conceive. And I'm like, I don't know. They've been shooting down aircrafts from the UFOs since 47 in Roswell. Like, I think we probably got something going on here.
Yeah. I've seen some crazy stuff, man. My boy Jamin, he was like showing me a couple years ago these like old tests on Reddit. He's like a Reddit monster. He knows how to use Reddit.
That's why he's a beast. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so there was like this video of, so Russia has these nuclear warheads where what happens is when it shoots out hundreds of things at a time. Some of them are real live nuclear warheads and some of them aren't, right? Which makes it almost impossible, right, to try and stop this because you've got hundreds of different projectiles that are coming out. And so it was like this machine, though, that was designed to like basically like lock on to each and every one of these and like shoot it down. And I'm like, yo, that's crazy technology. Because you got to think about these things are also supersonic like weapons. You know what I'm saying? So if there's anything that's designed to combat that, then like, bro, they can take some drones up the sky, my G.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. It also kind of feels like we are living in a world war. It's just done through stuff like this, right? Like this, I'm talking about the stream, right? I think it's psychological warfare. It's bids for people's time and attention and thought energy. I think that's really what it's about, because you can't be, because any of them that are operating with like crazy levels of tech, let's say you know what exists, you at least have to fear that someone has something similar, right? And so that if you understand the significance of what you could unleash, they all can, right? It's like the same sort of why they made the whole atomic bomb in the first place, right? Horrible that was created, but you understood the logic in terms of why they did it and what it means. And so it should have been fairly inevitable that warfare would shift towards public opinion pretty quickly, because when you live in this kind of climate, like that's, if you pull the trigger, like the whole thing's done.
I was just having a very similar conversation with a friend about this idea, right? Like in some ways, I'm very pessimistic about a lot of stuff. But the one thing that I guess I'm optimistic about is that I don't think we'll ever have to deal with like nukes again. I don't think anyone will use a nuke anymore.
Oh, I think the UFOs will turn it off before they can, so it's all good.
Ooh.
There's a great book, very dry but very good, called UFOs and Nukes. It's somewhere back there, and it's really for like not the faint of heart. Like it's quite nerdy, but there's a direct correlation between areas of atomic weapons and appearances of UFOs and involvements with UFOs. A ton.
Interesting. I mean, we got one off. So what happened that time? How did we get one of them nukes off without them interfering?
Maybe they were busy. They're on lunch break or something.
Dude, I think about that stuff sometimes though. It's like there was a nuke that was dropped.
It's crazy.
Like that's crazy to think about that actually happened at some point in history, bro. And it wasn't that long ago either.
No.
But anyways, yeah, like another friend was talking about some of this stuff, and they were saying like Russia sent like a submarine to try to deter the US from taking all these oil tankers in Venezuela and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I doubt that anyone's ever going to fire, but at the end of the day, like this is kind of how they do it. It's like optics of like I'm able to do this. Like, what's up? You know?
Yeah. Did you ever hear about the Arizona UFO case? And I believe it was in the 80s. Did you ever hear about that? Okay, so the governor, I think it was of Arizona, he came out in a big UFO costume the following day to make a big like spectacle of it all, basically to laugh it all off. And he has since come out and said that he saw it too.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So there was this massive UFO sighting in Arizona. I believe it was in 80. It might have been 82. And so many people saw. We're talking an absurd amount of sightings. And so then the press conference the next day, I believe it was the governor of Arizona, comes out with a UFO costume to make a big joke about the whole thing. And he has since come out and said, fact check me, go find everything. But he has since said he saw it too. And he was lying. He did it because he was told to, essentially.
Whoa. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely like it wouldn't be a thing unless it was a thing, right?
There's so many stories throughout so much of history, even when you go through religious texts. Because you also have to think about how they would describe things at times, right? Like when you go through and you read the modern translations, you're like, okay, they were so extra when they spoke. And so they're probably describing something similar to how we would say far more casually, right? And so then people try to take the definitions literally. It's like they just spoke so differently back then. It wouldn't have made sense. The example that I always give is just look at today. There are examples all over the English language. For example, think of the varying in meanings from booty call and butt dial.
Where'd you get that one from?
It's something that I've used before because it's the perfect one, right? Because they mean like such different things, but if you were translating them, you would not be able to discern that without context.
Wow.
Right?
That's a really good one.
So different. And so then when you see all these things, you're like, it sounds like a lot of times these people are describing seeing some sort of UFO in this like ancient scripture.
Fascinating. I've definitely seen like in
Wheels
some
within wheels.
conspiracy movies where there's like hieroglyphics that have like helicopters or some crazy stuff like that.
Oh yeah, dude, the hieroglyphic stuff is crazy. We definitely want to have some people on with some of the more conspiratorial stuff that I watch, because there's people that I would love to pick their brain on when it comes to Egypt. Did you see that guy who went on Joe Rogan's show and it's been labeled his worst episode ever?
Interesting. No,
because he's one of the most famous Egyptologists, but the people in Egypt, and I'm ignorant, I've never been there. This is all secondhand reporting. But what they'll do is they'll constantly basically say that they try to safeguard the narrative that exists, saying that it was made by the people that they say it was made by. When a lot of people feel like the people who said they made it kind of found it and then took it over.
Interesting. Is it Dr. Zahi Hawass?
That sounds right. That still gets brought up all over the internet as the worst ever episode. Do you guys watch Eyes Wide Open on YouTube? That's not a channel that I've heard of, I don't think. Let me go see.
I have not heard of that either.
But did you have anything else on these changes that you wanted to add? Do you want to go through the news? What are you thinking?
I think there might be just one other news thing that's worth talking about. Well, first off, today we were supposed to get feedback on, or the Supreme Court was supposed to tell us what they're going to say about the tariffs and whatnot, because essentially they're trying to block or allow Trump's tariffs. And that got pushed back again today. It got pushed back twice this week. So that was going to be a news thing, but we got nothing there. We had this statement from Trump yesterday, I think it was, about what should happen with interest rates when the markets are doing well. So I got to talk about this real quick.
When the market goes up, they should lower rates. You want to see 20% and 25%? You want to see what we can do? We've got to go back to an old standard. When there's good news, the market should go up, not go down. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's the way it used to be for most of the time. That's the way you make a country great. But our growth potential is unlimited and could be much higher if we went back to sanity. We're not doing it anymore. We're talking about the head of the Fed. And I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up.
So a lot of people are like, huh? Like, that's not how it works, right? So there's definitely something like so Trump says a lot of stuff. All right. And I never take what he's saying and just say like, "Oh, he's dumb," right? Like I'm like, maybe I'm missing something here, okay? And I don't know what it is that I'm missing on this one because this one sounds pretty not on point, but I'll keep thinking through it. But so, anyways, just to make it simple, make sure everyone's on page, right? When the stock market is going up and when things are going well, meaning inflation is coming down and or you have a strong job market, people are not unemployed, then the Federal Reserve, right, is very likely to not lower interest rates because if they lower interest rates, then things could start to heat up in terms of inflation, right? Investment will pick up, people will spend money, and then you get inflation, which hurts the everyday person. And so what he's saying is that, well, no, if things are going well, then we want to lower interest rates even more so that we can get 20% gains in the stock market. And it's like, okay, that might work. And once again, this does come back to what we were talking about earlier. If you can keep oil prices low, then you might actually be able to live in that what's called the Goldilocks zone for a longer period of time where you have high growth but low inflation. Okay. High growth and low inflation. Low inflation, oil prices are low. Technology is reducing the prices of things, but you continue to have growth in your economy through investment. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But that would only work, yeah, if you had some way to keep inflation in check. And I mean, I think this is the trick up his sleeve is, well, we have Venezuela now.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, oil is just tied to so many things, basically everything that we do within our economy. So it's such an anchor for prices. And so if you can keep that down, then of course you should be able to pass on some savings, and then hopefully that solves a lot of the affordability problems that are connected to it. So yeah, it's gonna be wild to see what gets pulled off. I also think that there will be some event that is impossible to predict that will change how we even assess a lot of these things.
I think that's super fair. And then there was one little like meme kind of thing that I just want to share on this because I kind of forgot.
Go for it.
So when Trump said this, interest rates should go down when markets go up. And then this guy said, imagine watching this and still saving in dollars. I was like, that's a really good point. Folks, Trump wants the markets to go higher, and it looks like he's willing to do a lot of different things to make it happen. So you don't want to stand in the way of that, and holding and saving in dollars is one way to be standing in the way of the fact that your dollar will continue to go down. In fact, there's one other tweet that I have to bring up to kind of point out what's happening here. The Kobesi letter, fantastic. Everyone, obviously, you already probably followed them, but the current situation, you've got stocks at record highs, you've got gold at record highs, you've got silver at record highs, home prices record highs, copper record high, platinum record high. I didn't even realize platinum and copper were doing that, but yep. Money market funds, US debt, deficit spending, household debt, all at record highs. So when everything is at a high like this, it's not a coincidence. And what this means is that fiat currencies are depreciating. Right? So we're seeing we're seeing the end of fiat currency right now. And we're saying that we're going to continue to lower interest rates and increase investment within the economy. We've got all the stuff happening with AI and so on and so forth. So The only last thing that I wanted to, there's two other things. All right, listen. So Trump said he was going to give these stimulus checks, and then the other day there was this thing circulating of him saying, "Oh, did I say that? Like, didn't really know that I said that."
Checks. He promised $2,000 checks to Americans based off of the tariff revenues. When can
I did do that. When did I do that?
So, anyways, quick thing there. One of the things to think about here too was like these $2,000 checks were supposed to come from the revenue that was being generated from the tariffs, and I actually saw some research that out there said that actually some of the average estimates of the annual cost that households are paying due to these tariffs was somewhere around $1,100 in 2025 and could get as high as $1,500 in 2026. So in reality, this $2,000 check would really just be kind of balancing out the fact that people may have paid higher prices over the past year anyways. And then the last thing that I did want to say from the Kobeissi letter yet again was the fact that over the past, well, in history right now, it looks like we're at one of the lowest labor shares of GDP. And this is a part of why things feel so expensive. So, and I wanted to bring this up because we're increasing investment in AI. And AI is likely to have deflationary impacts on the economy, right? So it'll keep inflation in check while we increase investment and get more growth out of the economy. But there's also a chance that that growth that comes to the economy from AI actually takes away from labor. It might actually take jobs away. It might actually at least reform the labor market, okay? And right now, we're already at major lows in what share that labor has of GDP. How much do workers get paid compared to how much GDP is being produced? And meanwhile, corporate profits are actually up 10%, okay, which is the second highest that we've seen on record. So while how much people are getting compensated for the growth that's happening in the economy is coming down, the amount of corporate profits are going up. Okay, and that's obviously leading to a massive, massive rise in not only affordability problems, but complete wealth inequality issues that aren't coming back into equilibrium anytime soon. So just wanted to, I think I'm done now.
No, you're good, man. I think that also repeats something we mentioned so much is that you got to create some control over your income, right? You got to become an entrepreneur, and everyone always like, well, not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. Well, yeah, they kind of do. Like that's the point that we're at, man. And I don't think also the question of what it means to be an entrepreneur or the answer to that question is changing every single day. And so I do think that more and more people will find little pockets to make their own income in different ways or to amplify their own income. And it's unfortunate that it's become a necessity, but it has. That's also another reason why we started the show, right? Is to try to give people some tools, resources, some places to start looking, because the tools are there right in front of you. But the same thing that can make you rich can ruin your life. And that thing is a little difficult for people to comprehend. And so they are typically going to see it, all the tools, all the information, as whatever is shown the most consistent to them, right? So if they're around people who just purely brain rot, that's their relationship to what it is, right? You and I are like, this is our gateway to build any life that we want. So we approach it with that kind of belief and enthusiasm and time effort into the right places. And so I think more and more people are going to be forced to wake that up. But I'm hoping that can hopefully raise the level of consciousness of people, right? Because across the board, there's a lot of people that don't know a lot about a lot that they could a lot quicker than they realize. And it's because they haven't learned anything in a long time, because learning in school sucks. Like learning in school is so unbelievably ass. And I was just so lucky that I saw that school was bullshit super, super young. Like literally like 7 or 8 years old. I'm like, wait a second, like, why am I doing this shit? Why is it important that I get 100 and not an 80? Like, why is that important to me? Right. And so I literally did not do any schoolwork throughout all of my academic career whatsoever, because I saw that I could just do nothing and get an 80. And so my dad would be like, why didn't you push for that 100? I said, what does that change for me materially? Literally nothing, right? And so then when you incentivize the things that don't actually matter, everyone has a bad relationship with learning. And so one of the biggest things that I want to change with this show is to make people obsessed with learning more. Because I also think about this too, where we get a lot of dumb comments from people, where I also have a lot of empathy for them, because I've been an entrepreneur for like 10 years, right? Fully working for myself. I've had so much more time and opportunities to learn things that they just didn't have the time for. Right? So when they're coming to this conversation, it's so unreasonable for me to expect them to know things that I know. Right? But now with AI, they can.
with AI and some time and some time. Now, one thing I do want to say too is like, so I also took a very similar approach to school, which I think in a lot of ways actually did me a disservice later.
Okay, explain.
I'll say it this way: it changed my trajectory. And so when I talk to my little brother, I try to actually be very intentional about like, once you're in high school, dude, then your grades actually matter, right? Because that goes in your transcript. And then if you want to go to a nice university or whatever, like they are going to look at that stuff.
Yeah.
So for the young people that are watching, I just want to make it clear that I believe that it does matter what you do in high school as far as your grades, because especially if you're not coming from a super privileged perspective where you go to some like super fancy school, then
Mhm.
like the grades that you make are going to be very, very telling of whether or not you're going to get into certain types of universities if that's the route that you want to take with your life. And now the only reason that that would matter, right? So I applied to the University of Pennsylvania, everybody. I applied to a lot of schools that were way out of my reach. And that one rejected me, right? But I really, really, really wanted to go to the University of Pennsylvania. My best friend, he took care of that for me, so that was something that was nice. But so as in he went there instead. But so point being, like those types of universities are probably the only ones that really have like the value that we so ascribe to going to university because of what our parents have always told us. Like if you're not going to one of those types of schools,
Mhm.
then you might not really be getting that good of a deal.
You're
But when
not.
you do,
It can be
you're
crazy.
around crazy people.
Yes.
And from there, your whole trajectory is just way different because I kid you, you're around. It depends on what you want for your life, right? But you're around the most important people in the planet, right?
Yeah.
When you're at those schools.
It's a social club.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's an incredibly prestigious social club with some exploration and some curriculum, of course, but it's really the social nature of it. Professor Jiang on predictive history talks a lot about that because he also went to an Ivy League school, and so he talks about the underlying dynamics of it. And he actually talked about how they recruit or how they let people in from admissions, and this was an incredibly insightful concept from my perspective. Like he's like they view students like they're like this VC firm. They're more concerned with that one that will be a 100x return than everyone being a 2 or 3x. And so that's how they build this incredibly luxurious Rolodex of prior students and alumni because of that philosophy. Most of you will flunk out. That's okay. The ones that win will be disproportionate returns. And so one thing that I want to say that I get where you're coming from, where you're like grades matter, but they shouldn't stress you out as they do most kids. And they also don't need to matter if you make that decision too. Right? Like I saw where I was like, I could look at this and I'm like, dude, if I get on the honor roll with 80%, I don't need anything to do that. I'm cool with that. Right. And I put all of my other time towards learning entrepreneurship and shit. And that was way higher return. Granted, I knew who I was, right? I knew I was an entrepreneur. I only went to school to appease my dad and play football. That was it. Right. And so I knew that. And so because I made that decision, I was like, anything I do for school to get that extra 20% buffer would be stupid as F for me. Right. So I think it has some conviction for like, who do you want to become, and giving the keys to the kid, being like, there are different paths to get there. And it's also a trap when you're in school though, too. And I realized this because it was grade 11. Everyone was like, oh, did you get into schools? Did you get into schools? And I got really lucky where my grade 11 marks were really good. So I got into like every school I applied to. Super
Nice.
lucky. I did less than nothing in grade 12. It was awesome. And so all the teachers were basically like constantly asking in every class, like, what university did you get into? What university did you get into? And then it just clicked into me. I'm like, well, of course, there's no world they're not going to see their life as a success. And they had to do that to now have the job that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, you have to go to school because that will be successful. Who's telling you that? Who has the most access to students? The people that had to go to university. They're not going to be like, I messed up. They're never going to do that.
That was such a good point. That's such a good point. Because I remember being in university and like the level of just like pretentiousness.
Pretentious and stupid, bro. I've never felt more intelligent in my life than being around university students. They are freaking they're retarded. Bro, they are. Like, I've never used that word on the show because people get butthurt about it, but I love that word. It's a lot of fun. But they are so stupid, bro. I remember being in group projects and I'm like, this is the future of our society. Our society is cooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the people that are there with you for sure. I mean, gosh, you're always going to have the people that are like looking at this as not anything more than what it is, which is,
A social club.
social club and an opportunity to, like, if you really care, go deep on a subject and start to do some research that hopefully changes the world.
But
Right?
now, bro, it's become even more of a scam. Don't lose your point. But my sister,
Mhm.
I knew all of this and was like screaming this to her before she went to school. And the pull and the propaganda of like go to party at school was so strong. She knew everything that I was saying. I was living, breathing proof of this. And she still went and incurred the debt and got the degree and learned less than nothing, Keith.
Mm.
I ask her questions because I had all the same classes as her, right? And I didn't learn much because I saw that it was horseshit, but she learned less than nothing because they could cheat with AI now too, right? So what they'll do is they'll just push for these
Yeah.
online classes and then cheat their way through it.
Yeah.
And I also
Yeah.
think the value of the piece of paper is going down and down and down and down because would you care if somebody went to a prestigious school at this point?
Oh no, of course not. Right. And
Yes, this is huge. John, great point. Because we reward memorization, not original thought or functional understanding. Yes, because that's so much harder to administer and control. Right? Who is this really good? And if you go back to the advent of the schooling system, there was ulterior motives from the very onset, from the jump, from the get-go. It wasn't to make people who built it. It was to make people that enriched the people who built it. Right? And so you can say, oh, it's for a great service. I want everyone to be educated. And of course, like I'm sure the average level of understanding is like orders of magnitude higher because of public education. But the people who paid for public education benefited from certain paths being taken. Also, when you think about this too, right? When you say like, oh, someone's a lawyer or a doctor, they're like, I'm studying law. I thought about this in the airport the other day. Like now I realize that studying law would be a pretty dumb profession to go down now with AI, in my opinion. I think so for sure. In terms of how many that are there. I think it's going to rise to the top. And I think the ones that are great will be so much more productive and the brand associated with them will make it so that it's so much harder for this bottom half to get involved. I think it's a dumb idea. And I had a friend that was studying law 4 or 5 years ago. And because of my client, I was early on this AI stuff. And I was like, this is ruining your life studying this law degree. I think this is a horrible decision. And obviously she didn't listen to me and she continued and she got the degree. But I think that will be a poor decision in retrospect.
I'll push back on that pretty heavy.
Please do.
I think that law is one of those professions where, and it's not even like as a profession, maybe you're right as a profession, but I don't think that it's only something that's a profession. It's also like a social weapon in a way that you can hold with you regardless of whether that's your profession or not, to be honest. Like when you're a lawyer, you're able to obviously defend yourself, right? Whenever anything may be happening in business or in your social life, right? You can defend yourself and your family in a way that's totally different. Like I plan to go to law school just for this reason of like, there is an actual advantage to being a lawyer. Whereas when it comes to like being a PhD, on the other hand, like that doesn't do anything, right? But as a lawyer, like I can on record represent myself. I can on record represent other people. And I just think that that's something that holds a lot of weight, especially in the world of technology, where I think that's going to become more and more relevant for entrepreneurs to have ways to defend their intellectual property.
I think that's totally fair. I think our views on this comes down to our natural inclinations towards risk aversion and appetite, right? Like I think why I see it the way that I do is because I'm not that concerned with risk aversion. I'm more of concerned with the opportunity to acquire. Right. Whereas you index further on the avoidance of risk having a higher degree of importance.
I think that's an interesting way of looking at that. I don't think that that's necessarily false. Because, yeah, I mean, the number one thing for sure is like, since we know where we're going, when we're there, what will we need to do to protect that?
Yeah, very
right.
true.
It's kind of where my head definitely.
I think that makes complete sense. And I think that in your hands, it would be incredibly valuable. But I don't think many lawyers that go to be lawyers would care as much as you.
Yeah, the only people that should be going to law school are entrepreneurs. To be clear, that's actually what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
Otherwise, there's no reason to do it because like you said, you're going to be crowded out by the people that have the brand and whatnot. That's a good point, dude.
But when you think about the people who, like, again, to bring back to my point that I was thinking about while I was walking through the airport yesterday, was I met someone and I was like, what do you do? And they said that they're studying law. And I instantly was like, whoa, like you must be really smart. And it's like, yes, obviously like that, there's probably a degree of truth to that, but how did that get formed? When you really think about the advent of schooling, who did entrepreneurs need the most? right? People that made them more money, lawyers and then doctors for their health, right? Like, of course, there's common good there too, but like it benefits them tremendously. Whether you're super rich, you still need those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun conversation, honestly.
Yeah, no, this is a systems of thought that it provokes. Yeah, I totally agree, but I think you can get that from software engineering too, in terms of training how your mind works. I think there's different benefits to how things work. Go ahead.
There's something about that language though, because that's the thing. For you to use a large language model the right way, like so I started studying for the LSAT a couple years ago, and like the way it definitely changed the way that I think to go through the problem of trying to it's logic, right? So the only way to really learn logic like that, and also words
Mhm.
in the use of logic, is to do something like that, or to literally study logic formally through programming or something of that nature.
Mhm.
Um, and like the ability to use language in the sense of a programmer, I think is something that's a super powerful thing, especially when you're trying to work with a large language model. I
Yeah.
think it's a totally different kind of skill set that you can't get.
That's also when you
Yeah.
think about this too, right? Where we talk about K-shape economy, but I really think that it's an information economy that is really dictating your way out at this point. If you're not already up in the top of the K, your only way up is from the acquiring of information. And so many people have such a bad relationship with learning and factually don't know how to learn, period. Right? Like I was explaining this to my girlfriend. I'm like, you're really smart and your brain opens up when you create your own curriculum. She's a self-taught engineer. And I was like, you and I can operate on a frequency that most people cannot because they've never made their own curriculum. When you are making your own curriculum, you're forced to decide what matters and what doesn't. Most people have never done that in their entire life, dude. They've
Yeah.
never had to associate importance with time and attention. They've just been told this is important. They don't even really understand why.
It's a very good point.
Also, I saw a point saying, is Caroline your sister or some shit? Caroline Levitt. No, there's no relation. Also, I believe she married in to get that name. I don't think that's her birth name. I don't think.
That's funny.
But bro, you still need the paper to get in the doors. If there's no doors, period, what paper is going to do for you? Like most of these companies that you're imagining in your head, they won't look the same in 10 years. The paper won't be relevant. Like I honestly still think that is. I don't think kids should be going to school. I think it's. I think it's dangerous for them to go to school. I think it'd be better for them to study something they really care about by themselves and not incur all that debt, because it still costs the same amount that it did when it wasn't irrelevant. If not more.
I'll say, if you're going to schools that have good alumni networks, that's one really good reason that you could justify getting a scholarship to go to school. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, if you can get it for free, yeah, that changes the equation. I'm more referring to the debt that you're going to incur from this. Like, are you getting a good ROI on that? And also, I think a lot of people that go to these prestigious schools, they work so hard they don't even take advantage of the alumni network.
100%, bro. I mean, that's the one thing is like like if you're doing it, please be entrepreneurial. Like that's something that for all the people, because there's a lot of people that are just in school, bro, and they're like, dang, do I keep going? Like, honestly, if I was in it, this is what I did. I finished, right? Because I was like, I'm 3/4 through this. I'm halfway through this. Like, if I don't finish, then I did actually waste time, which sunk cost fallacy, whatever. Plus, I did, in full transparency, everybody, I did have a scholarship, so I can't really speak
amazing.
on trying to
Good for
go into
you.
deep debt to do this because
Totally
I
changes it,
probably
yeah.
wouldn't have.
Changes the dynamic completely. And then again, Raging says, I'm in corporate America. The doors are still here. Yes, but we're on the precipice of like converging technologies that are going to change a lot of these dynamics so greatly, so fast that I just think by the time that you get done a degree, if you're starting today, you couldn't even predict what the world will look like 4 years from now in corporate America. Like I think things will change very, very quickly. I think that the need for a degree will become less and less because your ability to have a portfolio that is so much more diverse and impressive as a solo entrepreneur rather than someone who's down a specific lane at a job will just make you so much more objectively valuable. Like I can, most people that I know, because I've had to run my own businesses before, like I've learned 401 things they've never even thought about that are valuable in today's marketplace. When you're in a job, it doesn't promote you being entrepreneurial in most companies, especially older ones. They're really good at, it's a continuation of school. It's who can follow the path the best. And that's great when things are consistent, not when things are hyper changing.
here's the thought that's coming to my head. Any large corporation, and this could be totally wrong, it's just what I'm thinking, they're going to be eliminating labor, right? They've
Yes.
got all these people that they've hired already, and they're going to use technology to get rid of as many of those jobs as they can. On the other hand, when you look at the startup, they're going to only hire when there's a need for a person, right? Because they're going to be building with technology first. So instead of trying to prepare yourself for the corporate world, you
Mhm.
want to prepare yourself for the startups or the newer, smaller businesses that are coming up because
Where
they're
the
the
puck
only
is
ones that are
going.
actually going to hire anyways.
Mhm.
Maybe, maybe.
That's again, we'll see, time will tell. And everyone's going to have their own natural bias, right? I'm going to over-index to the entrepreneurship thing because that's where I am. That's how I make my money. And I've also seen that I was right on a prediction for things going this way. I could definitely be wrong on the next one, 110%. But I do think that things will change pretty dramatically. And I don't think that, okay, so even this point is worth touching. And the comments have all been so awesome. You guys are all very, very smart. So I appreciate all your contributions. But someone basically talked about how they're at a company that's been using this incredibly old legacy software for like that's 25 years old. I can't find it, for like billions or trillions of dollars, whatever. But that thing that you're saying, that the switching costs to change the systems is going down so dramatically. When almost all of the world is conducted by code, as the cost of code goes down to zero, the cost of changing the systems also does too, besides the social cost. So like the tech debt that is present in most places is becoming less and less relevant by the day, because eventually we'll get
Describe
to
tech debt real quick.
so tech debt is basically the compounding of poor decisions, or not necessarily poor decisions, but the best that were made at the time, right? So even if you think of massive companies, if you really understood code, if you go back into like everything that they've got going on, you'd be like, why the F did we do it like this? But because a lot of times it was started by a scrappy startup that didn't have the full team to do everything right. And they just have to keep building upon that foundation,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of times they can't switch, or they don't switch providers because the switching costs are very, very high. A lot of that is limited to do because of the cost of a programmer used to be like 150 grand for someone not that good.
Right. So
Now,
so
go
just to
ahead.
kind of try to visualize, right? Like you're building technology, you've got the foundation of it, you build stuff on top of that and on top of that and on top of that. And but if you need to change the thing at the bottom, right, then you have to scrap everything that you just built on top of that, right? And
Yes,
that's what he's describing here with tech debt and switching
totally.
costs. Like, is it
Totally.
worth it?
And ratings, it's not always about cost. It's about comfort and risk. It'll become too risky not to switch. That's the point, right? As these things move, if you can't be as nimble, you will go away. Unless they create legislation to further restrict the free market that we operate within, it'll become too expensive not to switch, not to improve the systems. Because you're living through this, Keith. Like, we're going to be able to roll out features so much faster than other people that have to do all these things. They'll get torched.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see what you're saying there. Like,
It's
yeah.
impossible to exaggerate this, Keith, because when people are thinking about systems, even with like say software and whatnot, when you're able to change things so fast, you can get real-time feedback and data that the learning curve can drop down exponentially, because you're going to be making the right decision almost every time for a fraction of the cost, right? And so how that changes the compounded nature of the improvements of these things is almost, we talked about this already, how that you can't picture the exponentials. Think of how fast every little system can change when the cost of code is so much lower. I would argue that tech debt can also increase with more AI use. Yeah, it can, but that's assuming that AI doesn't get to a point where it could solve most of that. Inherited a project like this, that's a ton of projects are stacked upon stacked upon stacked tech debt.
It can be cheap, but you have to realize there's a humanistic element to this as well. Someone is taking the risk to hire you, they will use what is proven.
To a degree, right? So now is how people think, right? But when things change, so too does the paradigm of assessment, right? Why did I specialize on social media? Because it was the only thing that I saw exponential potential returns, where my age or lack thereof would be seen as a pro, not a con. You think tech advancement happens easily? It doesn't. No one is risking business on new tech if they are not a new business. We'll see. We'll see. Like, we go back and forth on this all day. I think there will be such radical changes that it's difficult to comprehend. And
Isn't that kind of the point too, though, that like the new companies will compete, right? And then force companies to have to make the decision of either compete or die, right?
That's
Switch
my
or
whole
die.
thesis. Yes, that's
Yeah.
my whole thesis, right? And because you're going to be able to build companies with such small, like way less talent, where you can be so much more nimble. So we'll see all of this, right? I get what you're saying, that the current money is in the hands of very few people, but I still believe that crypto is going to be a very emerging market that's going to make a lot of people who are a lot more innovative have access to resources to go take on bigger problems. And I think when that happens, so many of these sectors are going to be infiltrated by someone who's willing to operate like this. It'll necessitate change.
Very,
But
very interesting.
who knows? I could be absolutely crazy and wrong on all of this. There's no way to extrapolate this out and see, right? Did you have other memes that you wanted to show up?
I think you got all my memes from me today, man. I think this is pretty much it. This is really, really good. I really enjoyed, obviously, this conversation and the back and forth with the chat as well, guys. Really, really appreciate the conversation here.
Holy shit,
Oh,
y'all are
there's
still going. What's
one
up?
thing that you were talking about too.
Which one?
The Instagram thing that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so Instagram is putting some power back in the hands of users to make your own algorithm. Let me try to pull it up here. But I also think that I get what this guy's saying here in the chat, where he's like, "Oh, you're not considering the human element of this." I think you might be missing the foundational type change that changes that very thing that you're assessing, right? Like the thing that you're thinking of right now, where you're like, "Oh, I can't picture grandpa making this change because he'd be like, I don't want to touch the computer." It's like, he won't have to, right? There's an interface problem currently with all of these things taking place, right? But the interfaces will be constantly improving too. So like a lot of these questions for like, how will this be adopted, are UI UX questions that will also be iterated very, very quickly. And so, yeah, I think that of course people will move slower, but when the rate of change is exponentially faster, what is slow is fast. Is my whole point. Let's see. So let me see. Can you share my screen here? Screen. Instagram. Right here. Okay. So building your Instagram algorithm brick by brick just got easier. Just go to your Reels tab and tap on the right corner to find your algorithm. There you can modify your interests to make your algo your own. This is actually, I think, a very big deal for educational creators too, because when you're competing one-on-one for education versus entertainment on a platform like this that is not permission-based, you're going to get cooked every time, right? Whereas now people can choose to learn about the specific subjects. I think this is very positive, and I would definitely take advantage of this, especially if you're spending a lot of time on platforms. I would over-index on the platforms that give you more choice, which is why I'm so pro YouTube, why I'm very anti short form content. So I don't think it's a good idea to spend time consuming short form content, really, period. But at least here's some choice where you can be deliberate and intentional about the content that's being shown to you. So I very much am pro this change.
Yeah, that's super cool. I gotta play around with that. I mean, next level stuff. There is some conversation still continuing here, which I want to respond to, because Raging Oracle said, but grandpa's making the choices, and grandpa's the gatekeeper. So if you can't get grandpa's buy-in, then you get limited. But like what I think Ben is trying to say is grandpa is going to face an existential crisis of, I'm either going to literally die or I'm going to change. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of what I think.
Bro, how many people fought using cell phones for a long time? Right? And then we got to the point where the cost socially to not be using a cell phone or a smartphone became so high that my grandpa walked in the store and bought a cell phone. Right? So the same thing is going to happen here. And so like you're saying that he wouldn't change. What does he love more? What does the grandpa want more than anything? You're saying risk. Risk of what? Losing money. The whole thing is like, if he doesn't do this, the money is no longer relevant because he's lost it. Right? So the only way this doesn't happen is if they make rules forcing things to go a certain way.
Yeah.
Got to consider the materials such. Yeah, and of course they got to build all of this stuff out, but I just think it's going to happen a lot faster because I've even seen within my own businesses, like I'm able to do a year's worth of progress in like a month's time. So I do think that the changes will be pretty insane. And I also think that it hasn't really hit corporate America as much as it's going to, because I just think that the winners of the adoption of the technology will run so far ahead, which is also why I think that there could be a massive AI bubble that does pop just like we saw with all the .com stocks, right? The time to be investing in something is when the winners have not been set, right? Of course, because nothing will ever be as grandiose or as large as something that people are chasing, right? It can't be. It's like the curse of potential, right? The kid who is the gifted kid out of the womb is actually the most screwed because there's no such thing that could ever stand up to what people thought he would become.
Yep. I did have one more meme. I thought this was kind of funny. This guy said, I hate taking calls, so I made a button that runs away from your cursor when you try to book. And so I've discovered on Twitter this year this whole kind of UX UI side of Twitter that I didn't know existed. And I think it's awesome. It's like little stupid stuff like this, like how to make UX UI better.
More immersive. Yeah.
And it's just like stupid stuff. Like,
because the barrier to entry of a problem, like more people who are smart can take on smaller risk problems. And also, so Raging, I get everything you're saying here, man, but using this argument is silly. You're saying we have had Bluetooth and EtherCAT since the late 70s. We are just now seeing those things in tech 20 years later. Yeah, because we didn't have the peripherals to take advantage of the technology. But this technology increases the chances that we get peripherals to take advantage of the technology, right? So it's the whole exponential question that I think we're battling here.
I would love to hear Salim engage in this
Salim would be more
conversation
bullish than I am, I'm sure. But you also got to take everything they're saying with a grain of salt too, right? Because they're so incentivized for this going that way. I also think they're a little too extreme. Like Peter, who we'll eventually have on the show at some point. He's okay. So, dude, it is an argument because we're having different opinions. And so you're saying why I'm ignorant is because I'm not battling with these corporate conversations, say in a boardroom. What I'm saying is that whole dynamic changes when the team across the street of 5 people is now doing what you guys are doing with thousands. It's a different conversation. Of course, that's impossible to conceive because you've not lived through we're living through it, right? We're building companies that are literally costing 1/100th of what they would have cost before. And that might even be too cautious of an estimate. So it's such a foundational change here. I understand why it's really hard to even conceptually get there, but radical times of change create radical changes in perspective and behavior.
What Ben is saying here, Raging Oracle, is that he's literally coming for your company's lunch.
Yes, we all will be though, bro, because we've been so screwed. The same thing you're saying that's a con, right? You're saying the fact that if this is objectively better, I have to fight people that are ignorant AF to get the approval. You don't need the approval anymore. You go start a competing business. And so unless they do some sort of practice to take your business down, which I don't think they'll be able to because they'll be like whack-a-mole. They'll be popping up every other day. You take me out, cool. My buddy down the street's going to do the same thing.
Yeah. I definitely get it. I get both sides of what's being said here.
No, I totally get it too. And we also are carrying our own biases, right? And I'm very biased on this part because I'm seeing how it's changing my life day to day. And I get where you're coming from in terms of people are slow to adopt technology, but that's because there's a learning curve associated with the technology. Where have we ever seen something like this where the technology itself teaches you how to use it?
Facts.
There's never been anything like that.
It'll teach you how to use it, and then eventually it's just going to do it for you, right? So, yeah, 100%.
That's why I said it has to be new business. It will be new businesses. There'll be so many industries disrupted, and I think that the corporate thing will change quite a bit. Old business in old markets don't work that way. I hear you. I just think they're going to have to. But do you have anything else, Keith?
Nah, bro.
I get it. AI is a problem. AI, yeah, it depends what you're looking at. It's either it's going to make things so different because there's so many little micro things that people don't think about on a societal level that a lot of things, we have tech debt in real life all over the place. Right? When you look at systems and whatnot, you're like, this is probably made because the smartest people didn't view this as a high enough stakes decision to be involved. It's true, right? And then so then you're looking around the system and so many things I see every single day where I'm like, why did we do it like that? That's kind of dumb. Someone probably was just like, oh, we'll do it like this. And then they kept doing it because they did it like that. I think this is going to dramatically reduce the tech debt to change systems. And I'm hopeful that we do. And I'm hopeful we can platform people that we believe will do it so in a non-malicious way. Like that's what Charles's whole thesis has been, to change the whole like societal things that operate our lives.
Love it. Yep, nothing else from me, guys.
We'll open up the chat if y'all have any questions before we wrap up.
Yep.
But that was fun. I get what you're saying, Raging Oracle. Like I totally get it. And hey, we'll find out in like 5 years. Hopefully we'll find each other. And then if you're completely right, I'll get you a beer.
And then there was also, someone did bring up the NYC thing with Eric Adams launching NYC coin. Did you see some of that?
I did, yeah. And then they rugged it really quickly.
So fast. Yeah, I mean, for all of us, hopefully here, no one's going to be buying anything like that anymore. Guys, if you see an influencer launching a meme coin, unless you are in the trenches and you have bots that allow you to snipe that stuff,
don't touch it, bro.
Please don't.
There's just not as many things keeping up the value, right? The network effect of that is just not there. And you also got to think about who's getting involved in that period. They're fickle by nature. If you're chasing a meme coin, like there's very little, probably not a lot of conviction behind that. So I definitely buyer beware when it comes to meme coins. Like I talk about this stuff, but I do not advocate people doing it unless they have the reps. But yeah, this is a very good point too, right? I bet everyone has at least one foreign friend on the internet now too. Keith and I are case in point. We're in different freaking parts of the world, right? Different countries, and we're communicating, running a business together completely remotely. Like that's crazy.
Yep. Neil Postman. I haven't heard of Neil Postman. I'm gonna have to make sure that I tap in.
And it's 5 questions to ask of any new technology. We'll ask that. I'll look it up and ask those questions to myself and AI. Don't be shy, guys, if you have any questions in the chat. Every corporate bro started off by not being a corporate bro and starting their own company. I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. I think a lot of people went right into corporate without trying to start a company. All from garages. I get what you're saying. So the previous generation of the scrappy people became the corporate bro. Right. Yeah, actually, I even see that firsthand with a lot of my clients who I tweeted this not that long ago. I was like, the winners of yesterday don't listen to the modern day versions of themselves. And that's why they lose.
Love that. Yep.
If they are only won disproportionately because they saw a gap in the marketplace that everyone else would have told them was crazy, stupid, or whatever, right? And I've been in so many, so you're right. I understand, Raging Oracle. Like you're right. I've had clients even where I've lived this firsthand where sometimes they won't listen to me because they're like, oh, I'm so smart. I'm so successful. I would know this better than you, right? But then the market changes. And we buy markets. Yeah, memes. I still think memes coins will do really well. I think they will come back in a big way because it's something that people can grasp. And also the price movements can be so aggressive. It's such an attraction mechanism for retail. We talk about this all the time where how everyone's addicted to gambling in one way, shape, or form, whether it's Labubu, whether it's any of this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like we understand the memes. Okay. And if there's a good undervalued meme, then yeah, we'll buy it. And not in the meme coin, but just like a cultural meme, right?
Yeah, 100%. I do think that I saw Fart Coin doing quite well yesterday, Keith. So I think that let's see what's at today. I'm sure it's retraced.
Oh yeah, because we had a thing about that. I was like, it'll never
touch all-time highs. We'll see, buddy. In the scenario that I think is coming, I think it touches all-time highs again. Not financial advice, but I'll take that bet. We'll have to figure out something that if it ever does.
I'm feeling good about that. I'll see the chart. No, I'm feeling good.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm straight.
We'll see, buddy. We'll see. But do we have anything else from the chat, or should we wrap it up here?
Jerome Powell would have to hurricane the markets, bro.
Mm-hmm.
For Fartcoin to end up there.
I think everyone's gonna have to print quite a bit. I think things will become legitimized very quickly. I do think we see a pretty crazy upcoming 6-12. But NFTs question mark. Yeah, have you been seeing the NFT markets?
I'm actually gonna try to talk about that later today on I'm going on Kyle Chassie's channel, and I might try to bring up your thesis. I'll give you some credit.
Go for it. I'm sure he'll call me an idiot.
Yeah,
but
NFT. NFTs making some moves.
The NFTs are moving in a big way, and yeah, I don't think that's the end of it. Again, I wouldn't get involved in a lot of these projects if you aren't very well versed in this world. But I usually Gary Vee is getting very loud about NFTs again, and I think that if it goes the way that I think it will, he'll be vindicated in many ways, and I think that can start a snowball of people getting curious again, because people can just come into such large amounts of money very, very quickly, and I think that just is such a good spreading mechanism, right? When you're like, I bought this thing and sold it for this thing, and people start paying attention. I think that there will be a very hated rally amongst NFTs. People will say it's fake. People will say it's bullshit. People will say real people aren't making that money.
Definitely, if that happens, I could see that being the vibe around it for sure.
Cool. All of that should be treated like they treat stocks until they are backed and insured by the Fed. Yeah, it's all very risky. NFTs, no, I'm straight. That's totally fair. I understand. If I wasn't from crypto, I would never touch NFTs. Go ahead.
He's also making fun of the fact that, because he said pitching memes to Keith, and he's like, "Nah, I'm straight." LOL. NFTs, nah, I'm straight.
Got it. Yeah, I think that. So I think Carl's referring to. You're referring to like the PvP nature of selling NFTs. Is that what you're saying? But I think some people in this space are so rich that the accumulation of these things is not like the benefit of it is because of the rising tide. A lot of these people have a ton of money in crypto that they don't really want to turn into fiat per se. So they'll do even more dumb shit, relatively speaking, to the modern day value of it, because they got in Ethereum at a fraction of the price. So yeah, the optics and the headline is this sells for 188K, but that might have been like $1,000 for that person when they bought it. Keith coin when?
True. Never that, guys. I
Never
will
a
never
Keith coin.
drop a coin. I'll tell you now. I will not drop my own Keith coin. What else was there? I saw something else.
That said, what makes a corporate job worth keeping? Like, what if we do land high-paying, stable role despite the market? I know we promote entrepreneurship in this market, and with AI coming. With that said, what makes a corporate job worth keeping? Like, what if we do land a high-paying, stable role despite the market? Well, I think the level of volatility across the board will redefine what stable means, in my opinion. But it also makes complete sense for you, right? Like, I understand why a lot of people have full-time jobs, and I'm not saying that necessarily everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, but I think entrepreneurial thinking has become a near necessity. And you might even be able to partner with someone in a way smaller team, and your security could come from the incremental increase in your income because you actually have skin in the game.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a corporate job, I wouldn't try to leave it for nothing. I'd
No.
be holding on to that thing for dear life.
I'd be holding on to it and be building your own thing on the side on evenings and weekends with some gusto, like being quick
Yeah.
on that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because things can change really, really quickly. Play in crypto with your disposable income only. Don't bet your house. Yes, I would not advocate that. Although one creator that I do watch, that's his recurring thing. He keeps saying, I sold my house. I'm fully in on the market. I'm like, bro, I'm risk tolerant, but that's absurd.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's usually, well, I mean, obviously, if you're selling your house, you're probably an older person, but like, I see older people doing that with crypto, and I'm like, and there's always these people that are like brand new. I'm like, yo, chill out, dog. Like, they just got bit by the Bitcoin bug, and they're just like, oh, I'm selling my house to buy Bitcoin. I'm like, whoa. Like, first
Yeah.
off, we're elevated, my brother. Like, relax. But
This is a good question. I think a lot of people have kind of adopted this philosophy of life. If UBI is inevitable, then why save ever?
I mean, if even, why save in dollars though, or why save? I don't get it.
I think that I'd assume they mean dollars. If they're going to give you a universal basic income that can allow you to buy what you need to survive, and you're only saving to survive later, if that's not even be part of the equation, why think like that now?
I mean, I think that's kind of what we're being set up for. Like, why would you save dollars now? Period. Too. Like, you shouldn't.
Yeah, savings in
like-
dollars isn't really savings.
Like the UBI right now, it's just not going to people who don't own assets. It's only going to asset holders, right? Like, that's the thing that's already happening. Is markets are being subsidized. So the only thing that would change in that thinking is that the poorest people who don't own assets, right, are the only ones who are being left out so far, and eventually we'll have to bring them along for the ride.
Yeah, which who knows how that will end up going. It'll be very, very interesting to see how they pitch all of these different things. I'm also so curious to see the impact of the coming year. And tomorrow we're going to talk about some of the legislation passing in crypto too, which is going to be big, and that keeps getting discussed over and over again. I see the big point of contention is the opportunity to provide yield on the stable coins. That seems to be being brought up a lot. The banks really don't want that to be a thing because that takes away a lot of their leverage.
Yeah, and then Cuthbert Jones, all they're going to do is raise prices on stuff to be nearly equal to that UBI, so you end up giving it all back. I do think that that's a real issue that could come with like life could get to where there's no way to get ahead
Mm-hmm.
if you keep putting more money into the economy and then you just let inflation continue to run rampant with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if technology creates a deflationary pressure on prices, right, then that could actually lead to a world where the money that everyone's receiving doesn't necessarily lead to higher prices. I haven't thought about that before like that, but I don't know. Maybe that's something to consider too.
Yeah, it'd be so interesting to see all of this. And that's Booth's whole thing is the fact that like, why do we think that inflation is a necessity? It's because of the system that we've operated in, and so if that whole thing changes, then everything else attached to it has to change, which is super interesting. But the people that ask for Carl to be a call in the future, we can definitely make that
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But let's also remember we're on YouTube, so we got to be a little safe with some of the stuff that is said. But I'm sure we can definitely make that happen. But what else was I going to say? All right, here. So what advice do you guys have for a non-US investor trying to start and eventually get into the US? I think, again, recurring thing is be an entrepreneur. It's a lot easier to get a visa if your goal is to move to most places. If you can create and bring your own income, there's not really a reason for them to not let you in because you're going to stimulate the economy and not take away from the existing one.
That's a good point. That's definitely the philosophy around it, right? And the US, man, it's pay to play, right? I mean, now we're seeing that literally with the golden visa situation coming about. Um, but yeah, I mean, once you can afford the best immigration lawyers and all that, like that's just how you make it happen. So, um, and when you have a business, that's what these immigration lawyers can try to help you do is get a business, get good press on yourself if you can, and then from there you've got evidence of you
Yeah,
being a contributor to
there's more and more investor-based visas because they want people that are productive within the economy. And so if you figure out a way to be productive wherever you are, and it's not based on a location physically, then you have so much more leverage. It's also why I always knew that I wanted to live somewhere warm. So from a very young age, I'm like, how do I do this? I need to be able to make my own money wherever I am so that I can just park myself there and now live there and then build a business there eventually, which is what we're obviously trying to do here.
And I find it fascinating that you people want to come to the US. But I mean, I guess for someone like you where the taxes are just so high, anywhere where the taxes are so high, I think that can be a good enough reason to come to the US.
I also want to be around the best.
Yeah, but we're all online.
Yeah, but it is different when you get to spend time with them one-on-one. I also think that you have a lot more variety in the ways that you guys live, right? Whereas in Canada, you choose cold or slightly less cold, right? Like there's not much choice there. And so yeah, of course, every country has its own problems, but I think the whole propaganda of the American dream is something that is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes self-fulfilling, right? Don't get me wrong. Uh, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the US. I definitely know it's a privilege to be from here. I'll admit that for sure.
It's so same with Canada too, especially even internationally. It's probably more of a privilege because everyone likes Canadians. No one really has a bad opinion of them. Whereas you guys are a lot more polarizing. People either love you or they very much do not. And then here's another one where he said, I think it was the same person, basically just asking, do you think it's a good idea to try to move there? There's so much unknown with so many of these things where it could go great or horribly wrong. And so you're subjecting yourself to whatever happens with all these things. So I think that everyone should make their own decision based on their specific situation. Because when people tell me that I want to move there, people are like, why the hell would you ever do that? And for them, I get why they would think that, right? So it totally depends on your unique situation.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer that. That's a tough one.
The digital nomad guy always says, or the nomad capitalist always says, go where you're treated best.
Yeah.
Right. And so to do that, you first have to understand your situation. What do you bring? What leverage do you have? What leverage do you not have? Right. And then use all the variables as the criteria for where makes the most sense for me. Cause I don't think there's one size fits all. I'm from Sweden. We are cooked. I think everyone feels like that wherever they are in the world though, too. Like, was there a country period where we're like, yeah, we're killing it? Like I never hear that online.
Someone brought up this USOR thing. So I actually did hear about, someone sent me this TikTok about it. This one was a reel about it this morning. I haven't actually looked at it because like when I see a TikTok about something, guys, like I'm like,
TikTok is so trash, bro. Like I know we bring this up all the time, but get off that platform, man. It is so bad.
and then Wes for ski, he said law school is dumb AF, but it's a weapon for. So the thing was, Wes, like I literally was thinking about you, and I knew you'd be in here when we were having that conversation. So I was like, let me come to your defense. but everything that I did say, I do stand on for sure. I think
Like they're pro getting a law degree, you're saying?
yeah, he's in law school.
And I'm sure he's doing great. And will do fantastic. But I think a lot of people get into it because they think it's guaranteed, where like, if I just do this, I'm good to go. Where I think they're going to get destroyed by someone who's really passionate about it.
Yeah, and that was why Wes, like I know, like literally everything I was thinking about you, because I'm like, you are an entrepreneur, like you are going to build stuff, right? And that's why it will work for you.
I
right?
totally see that. That's like another huge advantage that you may have over someone trying to compete with you. So I get all that. And again, that comes down to the thing of what makes the most sense for you. But Carl left a comment here that I wanted to touch because I think it's really good, where he said, we have to get out of this mega city paradigm. They're gross and violent and not much else. It's a very unnatural state for human beings to live in a big city. Right. And we talked about this before, where when people move to big cities, they say it's to be around people, but they're the most antisocial they've ever been. All right. And I think a lot of that is just default human nature. You can't, it's unreasonable for most people to assess risk in that many interactions. So it's just better to go to a default state of screw you, I'm keeping myself safe. And that makes people very cold. And then the downwind of that is people become angry and isolated. And then more and more crime and violence happens.
Okay, so Taiwan for you. Okay, so Kung Fu guy. I was literally debating to go to Taiwan. I kid you not, I guess whatever day it was, right before China did that little maneuver around Taiwan, where they were like, by the way, we can do all the stuff with our planes and swarm the thing with our boats. The night before that happened, I had made the decision that I was going to go to Taiwan. And then I was like,
wow,
bruh, I'm not finna go to Taiwan. So please tell me how you feel about all of that, because I know it's always a thing. And that's the one thing about it for me. It's like, well, if China actually moves in on Taiwan, it's an island. So you're not really going to be able to get out of there too easily. You know what I mean?
Not ideal. We got a question from Coding with Gigi. Is Finland still the happiest country? If we got any Finnish people in there, would love to know. And then someone else said, what about just posting on TikTok, not consuming? If you can pull that off, fantastic. But if that is truly why you're doing it, post from desktop.
Yeah, I use Opus clips so that I'm never actually on there for my TikTok stuff.
Where all the richest cities go every weekend, their country house. My brain tingles when I drive by G Towers. I just booked a trip.
Yeah.
Facts, you get absolutely destroyed if you don't want to be a big law lawyer for real. And most people don't really learn what that means until you get in. I think a lot of people just aren't prepared for what they're signing up for and everything attached to it. It's crazy how normalized it's become to make life-altering decisions whimsically. It's across the board with like who you have a kid with, like marriage, where you go to school and you're about to incur hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I do think there should be some more guardrails in there in terms of educating people to hopefully make them more informed about what a good decision would even look like.
Kung Fu guy said their maneuvers don't bother me. Saber rattling. Just booked a trip for June. Been going there since 2004.
That Taiwan?
Yep. That's fair, man. That's the thing. Cause I'm like, I know it's always there. Like it's always there. But we did, like Raging Oracle said, no reason for China not to now because we did just make that big move on Venezuela.
Venezuela. Yeah.
So I'm just like, bro, like to me, that means it's like in general, when Trump is out here, the one thing that's for sure about Trump, when he's saying stuff, like he's not just saying that stuff.
Mhm.
Like he's acting on that stuff. And so that's the thing that kind of changes the whole dynamic in my mind around China can do that same approach of like, well, actually, we're saying this, but we're also going to move on it. Right. So
There's certainly created that realistic possibility of all of it, right? With a move that serious, people have to pay attention. This person kept saying this, so I'll ask, how as a Canadian are you prepared for the USD downfall? I think the CAD is in a worse position, being the Canadian dollar. So
yeah.
I'd say my approach would be the same regardless of which country that I was in. I think you want to get into assets that are limited in nature. And yeah, Coding says the happiest place has to be warm and sunny for me. That's a big thing for me too. I like a lot of Canada. There's just no warm place here. Can't live life scared of what powerful maniacs might or might not do. Must live free. I agree with a lot of that because if I don't know how philosophical I want to get, but I've been thinking a lot about that, and that's becoming more and more something that I believe with conviction. Is that how much of the problem that we have about worrying about what maniacs might do comes from the fact that we worry about it? Like I know that made no sense, but if you break down what I'm saying, you'll understand, right? Like the
for
feeding
sure.
of the yeah.
For sure. Yeah, at first for me it was natural disasters too. I was thinking about that in for Bali because Bali had the Indian Ocean thing in like 2004 or something, and that killed hundreds of thousands of people.
What's happened there? I'm not familiar.
There was an earthquake that created a tsunami that killed hundreds of thousands of people. It was more like Sri Lanka that it like
Dang.
wiped out,
That's so
but
sad.
Bali got hit because it's in that area. And I'm like, well, that would be pretty devastating. But I can't live in fear of that. And then Bangkok last summer had the earthquake, which I don't think people really died from that, but it did like put cracks in the walls of like tons of buildings. So I think I've gotten over the natural disaster potential thing at least. But when we're talking about the fact that, yeah, there is just a guy who could make a call and that be the reason that I'm stuck on it, like, bro, I'll be honest, like, that sucks.
100. Oh, that'd be horrible. But Raging Oracle says again, I think it's BS. I think he's referring to my point where I'm like, you can't worry about this so much. To a degree, right? I'm a proponent of calculated risk, right? And so if you won't do anything because there's risk involved, you'll never do anything ever. So I think it's more about maybe adjusting the lens of what your risk appetite is in different avenues in life, and that's more so what I'm referring to. But I wouldn't, if I looked at something like I wouldn't. Case in point, I wouldn't go for a trip to North Korea, right? Like I think that yeah, even if I felt an inclination tomorrow to be like, oh, I really want to go explore North Korea, I'd be like, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, man.
Yeah. I'd have to learn a lot more about Taiwan, bro, because it's just like I want to go there because I want to learn Mandarin. Like that's why. And I think it'd be a great place to go and do that. But I just don't know enough to where it's like, is there a real yeah, like it like what is the calculation that needs to be done that I have no idea there.
It's
you know?
tough. It's tough because we're asking a lot of people, which I totally understand. And most of the people that people spend most of their time talking to have been taught the same way, and then they were taught the same way from the person who taught them. So there's a lot of programming that's also part of just a necessity from learning from people before you that's very deeply rooted. And we're ill prepared for all these forces, much like we talked about with the Terrence McKenna stuff, right? Where he's like, things are going to get so weird because these crazy changes that have taken place is the forces that create uniformity around agreed upon social standards They're wavering. Like there's just too much weight on them, man.
Yeah, man. We had some comments that I wanted to follow up on. So World War III trader, crazy name, by the way.
That's wild.
Is Memes and Markets an investment group? And then Coding with Gigi followed up. She said, it's much more than that. These guys are legends. Thank you, Coding with Gigi. We have no investment group, guys. There's no investments to be made.
No investment group. If anyone ever tells you that there's an investment group, they are lying to you. We will eventually open up some sort of community-like stuff, but we're carrying a lot of stuff here. Once we break through and have the revenue to expand our team, we'll definitely be more conscious of giving you guys opportunities to connect with each other, and then give you different ways to be more involved with the show and everything around it. We've had a lot of requests here. I want to give another shout out to a few of our fans that have asked for merch and stuff, and then some people have been asking for a mug too. So we're actively working on getting that, something that will be available where you can get a Memes and Markets mug.
Yep. And that Kung Fu guy actually it's cool. You're consistent. So I just followed you on Instagram. I will shoot your DM.
What did they say? He
was saying that feel free to DM about Taiwan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See if you want to go to Taiwan. Well then, last chance to ask any questions or go down any other rabbit holes before we wrap up. But we will be live again tomorrow, guys. So we're going to be going through the crypto legislation, the different characters involved, the different tweets going down, the stakeholders, Brian Armstrong, all that stuff.
There was one other thing that I did see that I wanted to share. Someone shared in the group chat that I'm in. Germany deploying troops to Greenland. Okay, so we'll leave off with that one.
Wow.
Sorry. But yeah, guys. If anyone who wants to join the newsletter,
great call.
Memesandmarkets.com.
Memesandmarkets.com. You can go ahead and check that out. Subscribe for free. Keith, did you have a piece going out today?
It's out there.
Amazing. So you can go watch that. I'll be posting a piece Friday morning. So go show us some love over there. You can go subscribe for free. We'll be posting multiple times per week, pretty well every week. So go ahead and do that. It is linked in the description box of this, as well as any other episode. And you can just go to memesandmarkets.com and you'll find it.
Yep.
We also, one more call to action is that on the podcasting apps, we've seen a lot of you guys coming over there and giving us a 5-star review, which is super, super appreciated.
Yes.
So whenever y'all have the time, takes a few seconds, you can go over there, toss us a 5-star review, helps us out so much. So we appreciate that. If we've given you any value, we definitely appreciate a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
All my real ones are on Spotify. But
that's it.
We need love everywhere.
That's it. Well, appreciate all y'all tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow at noon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Like and subscribe.
That's it. Peace, guys.
Peace, y'all. We'll see you.
All right. Let's do this. And bada bing.